Nathan Hayes stared at the eviction notice clutched in his shaking hand, then at his sleeping daughter Emma through the cracked bedroom door. 3 days. That's all he had left. The warehouse job barely covered food anymore, and the landlord's patience had finally run out. He'd failed her. Failed the only person left who mattered. But at 5:47 a.m., when that knock shattered the silence, Nathan had no idea his entire world was about to flip upside down. The woman standing on his porch was about to reveal a secret 20 years old, a debt he never knew existed, and a choice that would change everything. If you want to see how far one small act of kindness can travel across time, stay with me until the end. And don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach. The knock came again, harder this time. Nathan Hayes jerked awake on the sagging couch, his neck stiff from another night of broken sleep. For a second, he couldn't remember where he was. Then reality crashed back. The water-stained ceiling, the draft coming through the window he'd tried to seal with duct tape, Emma's pink backpack sitting by the door for school. 5:47 a.m. Nobody knocked at 5:47 a.m. with good news. He dragged himself upright, every muscle protesting. 32 years old and he felt 60. The overnight warehouse shift had ended only 4 hours ago, and he'd come home to find Emma already asleep on the couch, her math homework half finished on the coffee table. He'd carried her to bed, then collapsed himself, still in his work clothes. The knock came a third time. All right, Nathan muttered, stumbling toward the door. Probably the landlord. Mr. Chen had been making noise about the rent for weeks now, and Nathan was already 12 days late. He'd promised to have it by Friday. It was only Tuesday. He pulled the door open, ready to apologize, to beg for more time. But it wasn't Mr. Chen. The woman standing on his crumbling concrete porch looked like she'd stepped out of a different universe entirely. Mid-30s, maybe? Dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Nathan made in 3 months. Her dark hair was pulled back in a way that seemed effortless, but probably took professional help. Behind her sat a black car, something sleek and European that Nathan couldn't even name, idling at the curb. Nathan Hayes? Her voice was smooth, controlled. Yeah. He glanced past her at the car, then back. Look, if you're selling something, I'm not selling anything. She extended her hand. My name is Vivienne Laurent. Nathan just stared at her hand. The name meant nothing to him. She lowered it, not seeming offended. May I come in? It's not even 6 in the morning. I know, I apologize for the hour, but this couldn't wait. She glanced at the street behind her. Please, just 5 minutes. Every instinct told Nathan to shut the door. Strange woman, expensive car, too early morning, nothing about this added up right. But there was something in her eyes. Not threat, not sales pitch. Something else he couldn't quite name. He stepped aside. Vivienne Laurent walked into his house like she was entering a business meeting, taking in everything with a single sweep of her eyes. The peeling linoleum, the thrift store furniture, the stack of past due bills on the kitchen counter that Nathan hadn't quite managed to hide. Coffee? Nathan asked, though he wasn't sure why. Some autopilot instinct to be polite? No, thank you. She turned to face him fully. Mr. Hayes, I'm here because it's time to repay what you owe me. Nathan's stomach dropped. I don't owe you anything. I've never even met you. Are you certain about that? Yeah, I'm pretty damn certain. I don't know any billionaires. He'd said it before his brain caught up. You are, Laurent Industries? That's you? The faintest smile touched her lips. Yes, Laurent Industries. Even Nathan, who barely followed the news anymore, had heard that name. Tech empire, real estate, charitable foundations, the kind of massive corporation that showed up in headlines when they acquired smaller companies the way normal people bought groceries. Look, Ms. Laurent, I think you've got the wrong person. I work in a warehouse. I load trucks. I don't have connections to your world. I don't have anything you could possibly want. Vivienne studied him for a long moment. You really don't remember me? It wasn't a question. There was something almost sad in the way she said it. Remember you from where? She walked slowly to the window, looking out at the street where morning light was just starting to creep across the pavement. 20 years ago, Riverside, about 40 miles west of here. There was a diner called Mel's. Nathan frowned. Riverside. He'd lived there briefly as a kid after his mom died. 12, 13 years old, bouncing between his dad's place and his uncle's. That whole period was mostly a blur of trying to stay invisible. It was raining, Vivian continued, still not looking at him. October, cold rain, the kind that goes right through your clothes. I was sitting behind the dumpster in the alley next to that diner, 10 years old, hadn't eaten in 2 days. Something flickered at the edge of Nathan's memory. Vague, uncertain. You came out the back door, she said. Kitchen worker had sent you to throw out trash. You saw me there. Most people they pretended not to see. Easier that way. But you stopped. The memory was coming back now, fuzzy around the edges. A little girl, soaking wet, shivering. He'd been helping out at Mel's after school for cash under the table. The cook, Jerry, didn't care that Nathan was underage as long as the work got done. You asked if I was hungry, Vivian said quietly. I said no, obviously lying. You went back inside. I thought that was it. But you came back out with a bag, leftover burger, fries, apple pie. You said Jerry wouldn't miss it. Then you brought out your jacket and made me put it on. Nathan remembered the jacket. Brown canvas thing with a broken zipper. He'd saved up for it himself. You sat with me while I ate, Vivian continued. Didn't ask questions. Didn't lecture me about where I should be. You just sat there, like I was a person worth sitting with. She finally turned to look at him. When you had to go back inside, you told me to keep the jacket. You said you had another one at home. I didn't, Nathan said softly. The memory was clear now. He'd frozen his ass off for 2 weeks before he could afford a replacement from Goodwill. I know. Vivian's voice was barely above a whisper. The next morning I went back to that alley. You weren't there. I waited 3 days. You never came back. Jerry fired me. Nathan rubbed his face, caught me giving away food, said I was stealing. That jacket kept me warm for 6 months, Vivian said. I washed it in gas station bathrooms. It slept in it. Wore it until it literally fell apart. And the whole time I remembered the kid who gave it to me, who looked at me like I mattered. Nathan didn't know what to say. He barely remembered his own life from that period. He'd been surviving, same as her, bouncing between adults who didn't really want him, trying to make enough money to eat. The idea that some random act from 20 years ago had stayed with someone all this time. That was just, he struggled for words. That was just being decent. That wasn't anything special. To you, maybe. Vivian's eyes were intense now. To me, it was the first time anyone had shown me I was worth something, worth kindness, worth notice. She paused. After you disappeared, I stayed in Riverside for another year. Shelters, mostly. Foster care when they could catch me. I kept thinking about what you'd done. This kid who didn't have anything either, but still shared, still cared. She moved toward the kitchen table, resting her fingertips on the scratched surface. I decided something that year. I decided that when I got out, if I got out, I was going to find you, and I was going to pay back what you gave me. I gave you a burger and a jacket. You gave me hope. Vivian's voice was firm. You gave me the idea that kindness existed, that people could see past their own problems long enough to help someone else. Every success I've had since then, every company I've built, every dollar I've made, it all traces back to that night, to realizing I was worth saving. Nathan sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. I don't understand what you want from me. I want to give you a choice, Vivian said. The same choice you gave me 20 years ago. I didn't give you a choice. I gave you dinner. You gave me the choice to believe in something better. She pulled out the chair across from him and sat. For the first time since entering his house, she looked less like a billionaire and more like a person. Nathan, I've spent the last 3 years looking for you. Your father's dead. Your uncle moved to Arizona and wouldn't give me information. You've moved 5 times in the last decade. Changed your last name after you got married. You've been hard to track down. Didn't know I needed tracking. I need someone I can trust, Vivian said bluntly. My company is expanding into new sectors. Community development. Housing initiatives. Programs for struggling families. I have advisors. I have board members. I have people with Harvard degrees telling me how to spend money efficiently. But none of them understand what it's like to actually be the people we're trying to help. She leaned forward. I need someone who's lived it, someone who knows what it means to choose between electricity and groceries, someone who understands that kindness isn't a strategy, it's survival. Nathan stared at her. You want to hire me? I want you as a partner. The word hung in the air between them like something physical. A partner, Nathan repeated slowly, in Laurent Industries. In a new division, community development and outreach. You'd help design programs, allocate resources, make decisions about where our money goes and how it's used. I work in a warehouse. You worked in a warehouse, Vivian corrected. If you say yes, you work with me. Nathan stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. I don't have a business degree. I barely finished community college. I don't know anything about running programs or whatever the hell you're talking about. You know about being a single parent with no money. The words hit harder than Nathan expected. You know about making impossible choices, Vivian continued. You know what it's like when the system doesn't work, when the safety nets have holes, when people look right through you like you're invisible. She stood as well. I can hire business expertise anywhere. I can't hire someone who understands struggle from the inside, someone who still has enough heart left to help others. You don't know anything about my heart. I know you gave your jacket to a homeless child when you were a kid who barely had anything yourself. Vivian's voice was gentle. I know you're still working overnight shifts so your daughter can sleep in a bed. I know you're 12 days late on rent, and you've been skipping meals to make sure she has lunch money. Nathan's jaw tightened. You've been spying on me. I've been trying to understand if the boy I remembered still existed, if 20 years and hard times had crushed it out of you. She met his eyes. It hasn't. You're still that person, Nathan. You're just tired and scared and so focused on surviving that you've forgotten how to imagine anything bigger. From the bedroom there was a small sound, Emma stirring. Nathan glanced at the clock, 6:23 a.m. She'd be up soon for school. I have a kid, he said quietly. I know. I can't uproot her life on some crazy idea. I'm not asking you to uproot anything. Vivian pulled a card from her jacket pocket and set it on the table. Come to my office Thursday morning, 10 a.m., just to talk, see the building, meet a few people. No commitment, no pressure. Just see if this could work. Nathan stared at the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, an address in the city's financial district. And if I say no, then you say no. Vivian moved toward the door. But Nathan, you're running out of time here. I can see it. The eviction notice is on your counter. Your daughter's shoes have holes in them. The transmission in your car is making that sound that means it's about to fail. You're one emergency away from complete disaster. She paused with her hand on the doorknob. I'm offering you a way out. Not charity, not a handout. A partnership. A chance to build something that matters while also building a life for Emma that doesn't involve constant fear. She looked back at him. You saved my life once. Let me return the favor. Then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and a moment later Nathan heard the expensive car purr to life and pull away. He stood in his kitchen holding her business card, wondering if he'd just hallucinated the entire conversation. Daddy? Emma appeared in the doorway, her blonde hair a mess, wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with the cartoon cats that were getting too small. Who was that? Nathan quickly pocketed the card. Nobody, sweetie. Just someone who had the wrong address. Emma yawned. Can we have pancakes? They had half a box of mix left. Maybe enough for pancakes today if they skipped them tomorrow. Nathan did the mental math automatically, a calculation he performed a dozen times a day. Sure, baby. Go brush your teeth while I get things started. She shuffled toward the bathroom while Nathan pulled out the pancake mix, his mind spinning. Vivian Laurent. A homeless girl from 20 years ago who'd somehow become one of the richest people in the state, who remembered a jacket and a burger like they'd been made of gold, who was offering him an escape from the life that was slowly crushing him. His phone buzzed, a text from the warehouse. Can you cover Martinez's shift tonight? Sick kid. Nathan closed his eyes. He'd worked 14 of the last 16 days. His body ached constantly. Emma barely saw him awake anymore, and now they wanted another double shift. He typed back, Yeah, I'll be there. Because that's what you did. You said yes, you worked, you survived. You didn't take insane risks based on childhood memories and billionaire promises. Emma came back, toothpaste on her chin. Daddy, are we moving? Nathan's stomach clenched. What? No. Why would you think that? I heard you talking to the man yesterday. About the rent. Her voice was small. He was really mad. That's not... Nathan knelt down to her level. We're not moving, okay? I'm handling it. Everything's fine. The lie tasted bitter in his mouth. Emma nodded, but her eyes showed she didn't quite believe him. She was too smart, too aware. 8 years old and already learning to read the stress in her father's voice, the fear behind his reassurances. He made pancakes while Emma set the table with the mismatched plates they'd gotten from a garage sale. They ate together, and Nathan asked about her homework, her friends, what she was learning in school. Normal conversation, routine, the small rituals that held their life together. But the whole time, Vivian Laurent's words echoed in his head. You're one emergency away from complete disaster. After dropping Emma at school, her shoes really did have holes. He'd been trying to ignore it for weeks. Nathan drove to the warehouse. The transmission made that grinding sound when he shifted gears. Vivian had been right about that too. Another month, maybe 2, and the car would be dead. And without a car, he couldn't get to work. Without work, there was no money. Without money, he pulled into the warehouse parking lot and sat for a moment, staring at the building. 12 years he'd been doing this. Loading boxes, driving forklifts, working doubles and triples to make ends meet that never quite ended up meeting. 12 years of telling himself this was temporary, that something would change, that he'd find a better job, get a break, catch up on bills. 12 years of slowly drowning. His phone buzzed again. A reminder about Emma's school field trip next month. $20 for the bus and admission. He'd have to pick up another extra shift. Nathan pulled out Vivian's card and stared at it. Probably a scam. Had to be. Nobody just showed up offering partnerships to warehouse workers. This was how people got suckered into pyramid schemes or wound up in debt to loan sharks. But something in Vivian's eyes had been real. The way she'd told the story about the alley, about the jacket. That hadn't been a sales pitch. That had been memory. He typed the address into his phone. 40-minute drive to the financial district. He'd have to take a half day on Thursday, lose the wages. But if he went during Emma's school hours, she wouldn't need to know anything about it. Just to look. Just to see if any of this was real. Before he could talk himself out of it, Nathan texted the number on Vivian's card. Thursday, 10 a.m. I'll be there. The response came back almost immediately. Thank you. You won't regret this. Nathan shoved the phone in his pocket and headed into the warehouse, trying to ignore the way his hands were shaking. The next 2 days crawled by like something out of a fever dream. Nathan worked his shifts, picked Emma up from school, helped with homework, made dinner from whatever was left in the cabinet. Normal routine. Normal life. Except nothing felt normal anymore. He kept pulling out Vivian's card and staring at it like the words might change. Laurent Industries. Executive Suite. A phone number with too many digits to be anything but real corporate money. Wednesday night, after Emma went to bed, Nathan sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, a 6-year-old machine that took 5 minutes to boot up, and searched for Vivian Laurent. The results were overwhelming. Forbes profiles, TED Talks, interviews in business magazines, photos of her at charity galas, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, tech conferences. Laurent Industries had divisions in 4 states, revenue in the billions, partnerships with major companies whose names Nathan actually recognized. And there, buried in a profile from 3 years ago, a single paragraph about her past. Laurent grew up in the foster system, experiencing homelessness and instability before aging out at 18. She credits her difficult childhood with giving her perspective on the struggles facing vulnerable populations. No details, no names, nothing about Riverside or diners or jackets. But it was real. She was real. Nathan closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, listening to Emma's soft breathing from the bedroom, trying to imagine what tomorrow might bring. Thursday morning arrived cold and gray. Nathan dropped Emma at school wearing his only decent shirt, a button-down he usually saved for funerals, and drove toward the city, the transmission grinding ominously at every stoplight. The financial district rose up like a different world. Glass towers, People in suits walking fast with coffee cups and briefcases. Nathan found parking 3 blocks away, couldn't afford the garage rates, and walked to the address on the card. The Laurent Industries building was 30 floors of steel and tinted glass. The lobby had marble floors and modern art that probably cost more than Nathan's house. A security desk, elevators with actual attendants. Nathan almost turned around. "Mr. Hayes?" A young woman in a sharp blazer approached him. Professional smile, tablet in hand. "I'm Jessica, Miss Laurent's assistant. She's expecting you." Before Nathan could respond, Jessica was guiding him toward a private elevator, chatting pleasantly about the weather, the building, nothing that required real answers. The elevator rose smoothly, so smoothly Nathan barely felt it moving, and opened onto a floor that looked like something from a magazine spread. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek furniture, people moving with purpose through glass-walled conference rooms. And at the far end, through an open door, Nathan saw Vivienne Laurent standing at a desk, talking quietly with a man in a suit. She looked up, saw him, smiled. "Nathan." She crossed the distance between them quickly. "Thank you for coming." She was dressed differently than the other morning, still professional but somehow warmer. And up close, without the shock of the surprise visit, Nathan could almost see traces of that little girl from 20 years ago. Something in the eyes, the way she stood, like she was ready to run at any second. "I wasn't sure I would," Nathan admitted. "I'm glad you did." Vivienne gestured toward her office. "Come on, let me show you what I'm thinking." The office was massive. Wall of windows overlooking the city, conference table, sitting area, a desk that could probably seat 10 people. But Vivienne led him to a smaller table by the window with architectural drawings spread across it. "This is the project," she said simply. Nathan looked at the drawings. Building plans, site layouts, something large, something complex. "What am I looking at?" "A community center." Vivienne's finger traced one of the building outlines. 30,000 square feet, downtown near the bus lines, after-school programs, job training, food assistance, medical clinic, legal aid, everything in one place. She looked up at him. "I've been planning this for 2 years. I have the funding. I have the land. I have architects and contractors ready to go. What I don't have is someone who understands what people actually need, someone who can make sure we're not building another well-intentioned disaster that looks good on paper but doesn't work in practice." Nathan stared at the plans. "This must cost $40 million, Vivienne said bluntly. "Construction, staffing, first 5 years of operating costs, already allocated." The number was so large it didn't seem real. "Why me?" Nathan asked. "You could hire social workers, community organizers, people with actual experience in this stuff." "I'm hiring those people." Vivienne pulled out a chair and sat, gesturing for Nathan to do the same. "I've got a whole team being assembled, but they'll report to you." "That's insane." "Is it?" Vivienne leaned forward. "Nathan, I've spent 3 years interviewing experts. I've read reports. I've attended conferences. Everyone has opinions about what poor people need. But you know what almost none of them have?" "What?" "Experience being poor." Her voice was intense. "They've studied it. They've theorized about it. They've got degrees in it. But they've never stood in a grocery store trying to figure out which bill to skip so they can buy their kid a birthday present. They've never chosen between gas money and medicine. They've never been invisible." She stood, moving to the window. "I need someone who's lived it recently. Not someone who grew up poor and forgot what it feels like after they got their PhD. Someone who's there right now, who gets up every morning and fights the same battles as the people we're trying to help." "I'm not qualified," Nathan said quietly. "You're the only person who is." Vivienne turned back to him. "Look, I get it. This is terrifying. You're scared you'll fail. Scared people will think you're a fraud. Scared you don't belong here." She smiled slightly. "Join the club. I feel like that every single day." "You're a billionaire." "I'm a foster kid who got lucky." Her voice was firm. "Don't let the suit fool you. I still wake up some mornings expecting this all to disappear. Still have nightmares about being back in that alley. Money doesn't erase where you came from." She moved back to the table, her hand resting on the architectural plans. "I'm building this center because I remember what it's like to have nowhere to go, to be hungry, to be scared, and I want to create something that actually helps, but I can't do it alone. I need someone who won't forget why it matters." Nathan looked at the plans again. After-school programs. His mind went immediately to Emma, who spent too many afternoons alone because Nathan couldn't afford after-school care. Job training. How many people at the warehouse were there because they had no other options? Food assistance, legal aid. What would this actually mean, he asked. If I said yes. 6-month trial period, Vivian said immediately. Salary of $80,000 to start. Nathan's head snapped up. That was more than double what he made at the warehouse. You'd work with the architects and program designers, help finalize plans, review proposals. Once we break ground, you'd help hire staff, develop programs, establish policies. When we open, you'd oversee operations. I don't know how to oversee operations. Neither did I when I started my first company. Vivian smiled. You learn. I'll help. You'll have support. But the core decisions, the ones about what programs to offer, how to treat people, what the center's values are, those are yours. Nathan's mind was racing. $80,000, enough to pay rent on time, fix the car, get Emma new shoes, maybe even find a better apartment. And after 6 months, he asked, if it's working, full partnership in the division, profit sharing, long-term contract. Vivian paused. If it's not working, we shake hands and part ways. No hard feelings. I'll make sure you land somewhere soft. Why would you do that? If I fail? Because failure is a possibility, not a punishment. Vivian's voice was gentle. Nathan, I'm not offering you this because I think you're perfect. I'm offering it because I think you're real, and real is what this project needs. From somewhere in the building, a phone rang. Voices drifted in from the hallway. The normal sounds of business happening, deals being made, money moving. Nathan thought about the warehouse, about loading boxes for the next 20 years until his back gave out completely, about Emma growing up in that tiny house, wearing shoes with holes, learning that life meant constant struggle. He thought about Vivian Laurent at 10 years old, shivering in an alley, and how one random act had somehow turned into all of this. I need time, he said. Take it. Vivian pulled out another card, this one with a different number. This is my personal cell, not my assistant, not my secretary, me. You have questions, you call, day or night. Nathan took the card, his hand not quite steady. Can I think about it until Monday? Take until next Thursday if you need it. Vivian walked him toward the door. But Nathan, while you're thinking, ask yourself something. What does Emma's life look like in 5 years if nothing changes? If you're still at the warehouse, still one emergency away from disaster? She didn't wait for an answer. And then ask yourself what it could look like if you take the risk. Talked. Nathan drove home in a daze. The transmission ground. The engine rattled. Rain started falling. Cold October rain just like 20 years ago. And his windshield wipers streaked across the glass, leaving smears. He picked Emma up from school, and she chattered about her day, about a science project, about some drama with another girl at lunch. Nathan made appropriate sounds, asked appropriate questions, but his mind was 1,000 miles away. That night, after Emma went to bed, he sat at the kitchen table with the eviction notice on one side and Vivian's business card on the other. 3 days until the landlord kicked them out. $80,000 a year to build something that might actually matter. The choice should have been obvious. But Nathan had learned a long time ago that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. People didn't just hand out partnerships. They didn't track someone down after 20 years because of a jacket, except Vivian Laurent had. Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from Martinez at the warehouse. Heard you might leave. That true? Word traveled fast. Nathan hadn't told anyone, but apparently someone had seen him leaving for the mysterious meeting, putting pieces together. He stared at the text, not sure how to respond. Another buzz, this time from Vivian. Not trying to pressure you, but wanted you to know. I already spoke to a family housing attorney about your eviction. If you want, I can have her contact your landlord tomorrow. Buy you some time to think. No strings attached. Nathan read the text 3 times. No strings attached. She'd help him even if he said no. His hands were shaking as he typed back, "Why are you doing this?" The response came quickly. Because 20 years ago, a kid who had nothing shared everything with me. I'm just trying to pass it forward. Nathan set the phone down and put his head in his hands. From the bedroom, he heard Emma cough in her sleep. a wet, rattling sound. She'd had that cough for 2 weeks. He kept meaning to take her to the doctor, but the copay was $30, and he'd been telling himself it would clear up on its own. $30. That's what he was weighing against his daughter's health. Nathan stood abruptly, grabbed his phone, and typed before he could overthink it. Monday. I'll give you my answer Monday. And yes, please have your attorney call the landlord. Thank you. Vivian's response was almost instant. Done. She'll call first thing tomorrow. Sleep well, Nathan. As if he could sleep. Nathan paced his small house, looking at everything with new eyes. The stained carpet. The furniture held together with hope and duct tape. The refrigerator that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. Emma's room, where she'd carefully arranged her few toys and books, making the best of what she had. She deserved better than this. But what if he failed? What if he took Vivian's offer, quit the warehouse, and discovered he was completely out of his depth? He'd be worse off than before. At least the warehouse was steady. Predictable. He knew how to load boxes. Building community centers? Overseeing programs? That was a different universe. But then again, so was loading boxes for a 10-year-old homeless girl who turned out to be a billionaire remembering his kindness 2 decades later. Maybe the universe didn't make sense. Maybe you just had to trust that sometimes, impossibly, things worked out. Nathan walked to Emma's room and stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. She'd kicked off her blanket again. He tucked it back around her, smoothing her hair. I'm going to fix this, he whispered. I promise. He didn't know if he was talking to Emma, to himself, or to the ghost of his wife who died believing he'd give their daughter a better life. But he meant it. Whatever came next, Vivian's offer, the warehouse, the eviction, the impossible choice, Nathan was done just surviving. It was time to actually live. Even if that meant risking everything on the memory of a jacket and a burger shared in the rain with a stranger he'd tried to save, not knowing she'd grow up to save him back. Monday morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Nathan sat in his car outside the Laurent Industries building, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel like it might save him from drowning. The attorney Vivian had sent, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who talked fast and took no nonsense from the landlord, had bought him 2 months. 2 months to figure out if he was really doing this or if he'd just delayed the inevitable collapse. His phone showed 9:47 a.m., 13 minutes until he had to walk through those glass doors and give Vivian Laurent an answer that would change everything. The passenger seat held a folder. Inside were 3 pieces of paper. The first was his 2-week notice to the warehouse, already signed. The second was a list of questions he'd written at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come. Questions about insurance, about Emma's school district, about what happened if this all went sideways. The third was a photo of his wife, Sarah, holding newborn Emma in the hospital. He'd brought it for reasons he couldn't quite explain. What would you tell me to do? Nathan asked the photo quietly. Would you say I'm crazy, or would you say it's about damn time? Sarah smiled back at him from the picture, frozen in that moment of tired joy, not knowing she had less than 2 years left, not knowing Nathan would spend the next 6 years trying to keep his head above water and mostly failing. His phone buzzed. Vivian, no pressure, but I'm here when you're ready. Nathan took a breath, grabbed the folder, and got out of the car before fear could stop him. The lobby felt different this time. Last week it had seemed intimidating, foreign. Now it just looked like a building. Expensive, sure, but still just a place where people worked. Jessica met him at the elevator again, same professional smile. But this time Nathan noticed she looked tired. Coffee stain on her sleeve. A small run in her stockings she'd tried to stop with clear nail polish. Rough morning? He asked. She blinked, surprised. Is it that obvious? I've worked enough early shifts to recognize the look. Jessica laughed, a real one this time. My daughter had a meltdown about her Halloween costume. We were running late, and then I spilled coffee on myself in the parking garage. She pressed the elevator button. Some days you just survive, you know? Yeah, Nathan said. I know. The elevator opened, and they rode up in companionable silence. When the doors opened on Vivian's floor, Jessica turned to him. For what it's worth, she talks about you a lot. Whatever you two are working on, she really believes in it. Before Nathan could respond, Vivian appeared from her office, walking toward them with purpose. She was dressed more casually today, still expensive, but less armor-like. slacks and a sweater that looked like it might actually be comfortable. Nathan. She didn't ask if he'd made a decision, didn't pressure, just gestured toward her office. Come on, I want to show you something. They walked past the conference rooms where serious-looking people had serious-looking meetings, past cubicles where younger employees worked at computers. Through it all, Vivian nodded at people, called a few by name, stopped to ask someone about their mother's surgery. She wasn't performing. It was just who she was. Inside her office, the architectural plans were gone. Instead, the table held photographs, dozens of them. Vivian spread them out with careful hands. These are the people I met last month, she said, at shelters, food banks, free clinics. These are the folks your center, our center, would serve. Nathan looked at the photos. A young mother with 2 kids holding a bag of groceries. An older man at a job training session, concentration on his face. Teenagers in a recreation room playing basketball. Families sitting in waiting rooms. This woman here, Vivian pointed to one photo. Her name is Maria. 3 kids, working 2 jobs. Her oldest needs tutoring, but she can't afford it. He's falling behind in school. She moved to another photo. This is James. Lost his job 6 months ago when his plant closed. He's 53. Nobody's hiring. He's been living in his car. Vivian looked up at Nathan. I can write checks all day long. I can fund programs and build buildings. But I don't know what Maria needs when she's standing in line at a food bank at 7 in the morning. I don't know what James is thinking when another job application gets rejected. Her voice was quiet. You do? Nathan stared at the photographs, seeing Emma's face in the young mother's exhaustion, seeing his own future in James's desperate eyes. I brought my 2-week notice, he said. Vivian's expression didn't change. And I have about 100 questions. About the job, the contract, what happens if I'm terrible at this, about insurance and school districts, and he stopped. I'm scared I'm going to fail. Good, Vivian said. Fear means you care. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be. She smiled slightly. Nathan, I'm not offering you a guarantee. I can't promise this will work perfectly. You're going to make mistakes. So am I. Some days are going to be disasters, but we'll figure it out. Nathan pulled out his list of questions. Vivian answered each one methodically. Insurance kicked in immediately. Emma could stay in her current school or transfer to something closer to wherever they decided to live. Vivian had connections with good districts if they wanted options. If Nathan decided after 6 months this wasn't working, there'd be a severance package and references for other positions. Vivian had already thought of everything. What about the warehouse? Nathan asked. I can't just leave them hanging with 2 weeks. Martinez has been covering my shifts when Emma's sick. Terry helped me learn the forklift when I first started. These are good people. Give them 4 weeks if you want, Vivian said. We're not breaking ground on the center until January anyway. You've got time to transition properly. Nathan looked at his list again. But the questions on paper weren't the real question. The real question was whether he trusted himself to step into a life he'd never imagined. What if I'm not smart enough? He asked quietly. Vivian sat down across from him. Can I tell you something about the first company I started? I was 23, scraped together $30,000 from working 3 jobs, and convinced some developer to take a chance on a software idea. I spent 6 months building it, launched. It failed completely within 8 weeks. I didn't read about that in the Forbes profile. Nobody writes about the failures. They're not sexy. Vivian leaned back. I lost everything. Lived on a friend's couch for 4 months. Thought about giving up and just getting a regular job. But you know what I learned from failing? What? That I could survive it. That the world didn't end. That I could try again. She met his eyes. Nathan, smart is overrated. I've met plenty of smart people who've never built anything because they were too afraid to fail. Give me someone willing to try over someone who knows everything but does nothing. Nathan folded up his list and put it back in the folder. Then he pulled out the 2-week notice and set it on the table. Make it 4 weeks, he said. I need to train my replacement properly. Vivian's smile was genuine. Deal. They shook hands, and Nathan felt the weight of it. This wasn't just a job. This was a partnership with someone who'd spent 3 years tracking him down because of a jacket he'd given away when he was 12. So what happens now? He asked. Now? Vivian stood. Now I introduce you to the team. They've been waiting to meet you. Wait, what? Right now? Right now. She was already heading for the door. They're in conference room B. I told them you might be joining us. They're excited. Vivian, I'm wearing jeans and they're going to love you anyway. Come on. Nathan followed her down the hall, his heart hammering. Conference room B turned out to be a large space with floor-to-ceiling windows and a table that could seat 20. About a dozen people were already there, ranging from someone who looked fresh out of college to a woman who might have been 60. Everyone, Vivian said, this is Nathan Hayes. He's joining us as Director of Community Outreach and Program Development. The title landed on Nathan like a physical thing. Director. He'd never been director of anything. A black woman in her 40s stood and extended her hand. Shanice Williams, I'll be handling operations and logistics. Vivian's told us a lot about you. Hopefully not too much, Nathan managed. She said you're the real deal. Shanice's handshake was firm. That's all we needed to hear. One by one, they introduced themselves. Marcus, the architect who'd drawn up the building plans. Jennifer, who specialized in childhood education programs. David, who ran job training initiatives. Rachel, the grant writer. Tom, who worked in community partnerships. They were all older than Nathan, more educated, more experienced, and they were looking at him like he belonged there. I don't have a degree in any of this, Nathan blurted out. I need you all to know that up front. I'm not an expert. Good, David said. He was a heavy-set guy with gray at his temples. We've got plenty of experts. What we need is someone who knows what it's actually like. Jennifer nodded. I've designed after-school programs for 20 years, but I've never been a single parent trying to afford childcare. That's a perspective I need. We're not looking for another theorist, Marcus added. We're looking for someone to keep us honest. Vivian gestured to an empty chair. Sit. Let's talk about the center. The next 2 hours were overwhelming. They walked through building plans, program proposals, budget allocations. Nathan mostly listened, trying to absorb information that came at him like drinking from a fire hose. But every so often, someone would ask his opinion. What about operating hours? Shanice asked. We're thinking 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Nathan shook his head before he could stop himself. That won't work for third-shift workers. My warehouse shift ends at 6 a.m. If I needed childcare, 8 a.m. would be useless. The room went quiet. Then Marcus started making notes. You're right. What would work better? 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at least. And you'd need weekend hours. Lots of people work weekends. More notes, more discussion. Suddenly the program was shifting, adjusting, becoming something that might actually help the people Nathan knew. The warehouse workers, the single parents, the folks working 3 jobs just to survive. What about intake? Jennifer asked. Should people pre-register or just walk in? Both, Nathan said, gaining confidence. Pre-registration is great for planning, but if someone's in crisis, they need help now, not next Tuesday after they've filled out forms. Shanice was nodding. We'd need a triage system, someone at the front who can assess immediate needs. And it can't feel like the DMV, Nathan added. Nobody wants to take a number and wait in plastic chairs for 2 hours. That's dehumanizing. The conversation flowed, ideas built on ideas. Nathan found himself talking about the warehouse, about the community college he'd briefly attended, about the times he'd needed help, and the systems that had failed him. And instead of looking at him like he was complaining, these people were taking notes. They were listening. After the meeting ended and people started filing out, Shanice approached Nathan. That thing you said about the DMV, that's exactly what I needed to hear. I've been designing intake processes for years and never thought about it that way. Really? Really? She smiled. You're going to be good at this. Nathan wasn't sure about that, but for the first time he didn't immediately want to argue. Vivian walked him back to her office afterward. So, what do you think? I think I'm in way over my head. Yes, Vivian agreed. And those are good people. They actually care. I don't hire people who don't care. Vivian sat on the edge of her desk. Nathan, you did well in there. You saw things they missed. That's exactly what this project needs. Nathan sank into one of the chairs. I've got to tell Emma. I've been putting it off because I didn't want to get her hopes up if I was going to say no. How do you think she'll take it? Honestly, I have no idea. She's used to me working at the warehouse. This is going to be weird for her. Kids are resilient, Vivian said. She'll adjust. Did you adjust? Nathan asked. When you got out of the system, when things started getting better, was it easy? Vivian was quiet for a moment. No. For a long time, I kept waiting for it to fall apart, kept expecting someone to take it all away. Even now, sometimes. She trailed off. I still have dreams about being back in that alley, about being hungry and cold and invisible. Does it get better? It gets different. Vivian met his eyes. The fear doesn't disappear. You just learn to work with it instead of letting it control you. Nathan stood. I should go pick up Emma. Tell her the news. Nathan? Vivian's voice stopped him at the door. Thank you for saying yes. I haven't done anything yet. You trusted me. That's everything. Nathan drove back to Emma's school, his mind spinning. He'd done it. Actually done it. Given notice at the warehouse, well, would give notice tomorrow. Accepted a position that terrified him. Agreed to help build something he wasn't sure he understood. Emma came running out of school with her backpack bouncing, face lit up. Daddy, we did science experiments today. We made volcanoes. Yeah, Nathan knelt down to her level. That sounds awesome. Mrs. Peterson said mine was the best because I added extra vinegar and it exploded really big. She was practically vibrating with excitement. Can we do one at home? Maybe this weekend. Nathan took her backpack. Hey, Em, I need to talk to you about something. Want to get ice cream? Emma's eyes went wide. Ice cream on a Monday? Special occasion? They drove to the place near their house, more of a walk-up window than a real shop. But the ice cream was cheap and Emma loved it. She got chocolate with sprinkles. Nathan got vanilla because it was 50 cents less. They sat at the picnic table out front, and Emma attacked her ice cream with serious concentration. So, Nathan started, you know how Daddy's been working at the warehouse for a long time? Emma nodded, chocolate on her chin. Well, I got a new job offer, a different kind of job. She looked up. Are we moving? No, well, maybe eventually to a better house, but not right away. Same school, same friends. What's the job? Nathan tried to figure out how to explain Laurent Industries and community centers and program development to an 8-year-old. I'm going to help build a place where people can get help. Families who need food or help finding jobs, or kids who need tutoring, kind of like being a helper for lots of people. Emma considered this seriously. Like a superhero? Not exactly. More like someone who makes sure the helpers have what they need to help. That sounds confusing. Yeah, Nathan admitted. It kind of is. But the important part is, I won't be working nights anymore. I'll be home for dinner. I'll be able to help with homework. I'll be around more. Emma's face transformed. Really? Really? She launched herself at him, ice cream and all, wrapping her arms around his neck. I missed you, Daddy. The words hit Nathan in the chest. He'd been so focused on surviving, on making sure Emma had food and shelter and the basics, that he'd forgotten she needed him too. Not just his paycheck. Him. I missed you too, baby. He held her tight, not caring about the chocolate ice cream getting on his shirt. Things are going to be different now. Better. Promise? Nathan thought about Vivian Laurent tracking him down after 20 years, about a jacket given in the rain, about impossible offers and terrifying chances. I promise I'm going to try. That night, after Emma went to bed still buzzing about ice cream and Daddy being home more, Nathan called the warehouse supervisor. Charlie, it's Nathan Hayes. I need to give you my notice. Charlie was quiet for a long moment. You got something better lined up? Yeah, I do. Good. You've been killing yourself here for too long. When's your last day? 4 weeks. I want to train someone properly. You don't have to do that, man. 2 weeks is standard. I know, but you guys have been good to me. Martinez, Terry, the whole crew. I want to leave you in a good spot. Charlie's voice was gruff. You're a good guy, Hayes. Don't forget about us when you're fancy. I won't. But as Nathan hung up, he wondered if that was true. Would he forget? Would success, if this even became success, change him into someone different? Someone who looked at warehouse workers and saw labor instead of people? His phone buzzed. Vivian. How did Emma take it? Nathan smiled and typed back. She asked if I was going to be a superhero. Smart kid. What did you tell her? That I'm going to try. Good answer. Get some sleep, Nathan. Tomorrow, we start for real. But sleep didn't come easy. Nathan lay in the dark, listening to the house settle around him. The refrigerator hummed. Emma coughed once in her sleep. That cough still hadn't gone away. Tomorrow he'd make an appointment with a real doctor. He could afford it now. He could afford a lot of things now. The thought was almost scary. The next 4 weeks blurred together. Nathan kept working his warehouse shifts while spending his days off meeting with Vivian's team. They toured the site where the center would be built, a vacant lot downtown that had been sitting empty for years. They reviewed program proposals. They argued about details like whether to have assigned parking or first come, first served, whether to require IDs for services or operate on trust. Trust, Nathan said firmly during one heated debate. The minute you start demanding documentation, you exclude the people who need help most. Undocumented immigrants, people fleeing domestic violence who don't have their papers, kids who ran away from bad situations. But we need accountability, one of the board members pushed back. We need to track who we're serving. Then track it differently. Ask people to self-report if they want, but don't make it a barrier to getting help. Vivian backed him up every time. In meetings where Nathan felt completely out of his depth, where people used terms he didn't know and referenced policies he'd never heard of, Vivian would catch his eye and nod. Keep going. You belong here. At the warehouse, word spread that Nathan was leaving for some big corporate job. The reactions varied. Some guys were happy for him. Others seemed almost resentful, like he was abandoning them. Martinez pulled him aside one day during break. This new gig, Martinez said, it legit? You're not getting mixed up in something shady? It's legit. Laurent Industries, Community Development. Martinez whistled low. Laurent? The billionaire? Yeah. How the hell did you land that? Nathan almost told him about the jacket, the alley, the whole story. But it felt too personal, too strange. Right place, right time, I guess. Well, good for you, man. You deserve a break. Martinez clapped him on the shoulder. Just don't forget where you came from. It was the second time someone had said that. Nathan was starting to realize people saw him differently already, like success was a separating force, pulling him away from the world he'd inhabited. On Nathan's last day at the warehouse, the crew threw him a small party during lunch break. Someone brought a cake from the grocery store. They'd all chipped in for a gift card to a restaurant Nathan had never been able to afford. Speech, Terry called out. Nathan stood in the break room surrounded by guys who smelled like sweat and cardboard, who had bad backs and tired eyes. His people. For 12 years, his people. I don't have a speech, he said. I just want to say thanks for being decent when things were hard, for covering my shifts when Emma was sick, for not making me feel like garbage when I was barely holding it together. His voice caught. I'm not going to forget this place. Or you guys. You better not, Charlie said. And if that fancy job doesn't work out, you've got a spot here. Nathan nodded, not trusting himself to speak. That night he came home for the last time as a warehouse worker. Emma was at the neighbor's, Mrs. Kim, who watched her on warehouse nights. Nathan picked her up, paid Mrs. Kim for the last time, and walked back to their house with Emma's hand in his. Tomorrow's your first day at the new job, Emma said. Yep. Are you scared? Nathan looked down at his daughter, 8 years old and already learning to read his emotions better than he could hide them. Yeah, a little. Mom used to say being scared means you're doing something important. Nathan stopped walking. She said that? Uh-huh. When I was scared to start kindergarten, she told me brave people are scared too. They just do it anyway. Sarah, still teaching him lessons from beyond the grave. Your mom was pretty smart, Nathan said quietly. I know. Emma squeezed his hand. You're going to be great, Daddy. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Nathan stood in front of his closet, staring at the 3 dress shirts he'd bought over the weekend. Vivian had said the office was business casual, that he didn't need to wear a suit every day, but Nathan had no idea what business casual actually meant. He picked the blue shirt. Emma had said it looked nice. The drive into the city felt different now. This wasn't a visit. This was his life. He parked in the garage Vivian had arranged access to, actual assigned parking, his name on a sign which felt surreal. Rode the elevator up with other people heading to work. Normal. Routine. Jessica greeted him with a real smile this time. Welcome to your first day. Vivian's running a few minutes late, but she wanted me to show you to your office. My office? Nathan had assumed he'd have a cubicle, maybe. Right this way. She led him down a hallway to a door with a small nameplate. Nathan Hayes, Director of Community Outreach and Program Development. Inside was a space about a quarter the size of Vivian's office, but it felt massive to Nathan. Desk, chair, computer, window overlooking the city. Bookshelves. A small table for meetings. If you need anything, supplies, equipment, whatever, just let me know, Jessica said. It will be by in about an hour to set up your computer and accounts. In the meantime, Vivian left you this. She handed him a folder and left. Nathan sat at his desk, and opened the folder. Inside was a handwritten note on heavy cardstock. Nathan, welcome. I know today feels overwhelming. Just remember, you're not here because you know everything. You're here because you know what matters. The rest, we'll figure out together. Underneath was a schedule for his first week. Meetings with each team member, site visit to the construction location, lunch with Vivian and some potential donors. Training sessions on the company's project management software. Nathan stared at the schedule, feeling panic rise in his throat. This was real. This was actually happening. He was responsible for... Knock, knock. Vivian stood in the doorway, holding 2 coffee cups. Thought you might need this. She handed him one. It was exactly how he liked it. Cream, no sugar. She'd remembered from 4 weeks ago when they'd grabbed coffee during a meeting. I'm freaking out, Nathan admitted. I know. Vivian sat in one of the chairs across from his desk. That's normal. What if I can't do this? Then we'll figure it out. She sipped her coffee. Nathan, can I tell you what happened my first day at my first real office job? I was 25 working as a junior associate at a consulting firm. I showed up wearing the wrong thing, said the wrong things in meetings, and accidentally insulted a client by being too honest about their terrible business model. What happened? I got fired after 3 weeks. Vivian smiled. Best thing that ever happened to me. Made me realize I needed to build something myself instead of trying to fit into someone else's structure. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be reassuring. It's supposed to be real. She set her coffee down. Look, you're going to mess up. You're going to have days where you feel like an imposter. Days where you wonder why the hell I chose you. But you're also going to have days where you see something nobody else sees. Where you make a decision that actually helps someone. Where you remember why this matters. Nathan took a breath. Okay. Let's do this. Vivian stood. First meeting's in 20 minutes. Shanice wants to review the operational timeline with you. After that, Marcus needs your input on the entrance design. And this afternoon, we're meeting with the food service contractor to discuss the community kitchen. Nathan stood too, feeling like he was stepping off a cliff and hoping he'd figure out how to fly on the way down. Vivian, he said as she headed for the door. Thank you for all of this. She looked back at him, and for just a second, he saw past the Billionaire exterior to the 10-year-old girl in an alley, cold and scared and alone. Thank you, she said quietly. For the jacket. Then she was gone, and Nathan was alone in his office, holding his coffee, staring out the window at a city that suddenly felt full of possibility instead of just another place where he didn't belong. His phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Mrs. Kim must have let her use her phone before school. Good luck today, Daddy. You got this. Nathan smiled and typed back. Thanks, baby. Love you. Then he finished his coffee, grabbed his folder, and walked out to his first meeting as Director of Community Outreach and Program Development, terrified and hopeful in equal measure, ready to build something that mattered with a woman who'd never forgotten a kindness shown in the rain 20 years ago, ready to finally become someone his daughter could be proud of, ready to believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved this chance after all. The first meeting was a disaster. Shanice had projected the operational timeline onto a screen, a cascade of dates and milestones and dependencies that looked like someone had vomited spreadsheet cells everywhere. She talked fast, referencing things like critical path analysis and resource allocation matrices, while Nathan sat there nodding like he understood, his brain scrambling to keep up. So if we align the permit approvals with the vendor contracts, Shanice was saying, we can compress the timeline by 3 weeks, assuming the city doesn't push back on the zoning variance. Nathan had no idea what a zoning variance was. "What do you think?" Shanice asked, turning to him. Every eye in the room landed on Nathan, Marcus, the architect, Jennifer from education programs, two people from finance whose names Nathan had already forgotten. "I think," Nathan started, then stopped. He could bullshit his way through this, pretend he understood, nod, and agree. That's what the old Nathan would have done. Keep his head down. Don't make waves. But Vivian's words echoed in his head. "You're here because you know what matters." "I think I don't know what half of those words mean," Nathan said. "Zoning variance, critical path, I'm lost." The room went silent. Shanice's expression flickered, surprise, maybe disappointment. Nathan braced himself for the inevitable condescension. Instead, Shanice laughed. "Thank God. I was worried you were going to pretend you understood, and we'd waste 3 months before figuring out we weren't on the same page." She minimized the spreadsheet. "Okay, let's start over. In normal human language this time." She spent the next hour breaking everything down. Permits were just government approvals they needed before building. Zoning variances meant asking the city to bend rules about what kind of building could go where. Critical path was just the sequence of tasks that had to happen in order. Nathan started asking questions, real ones. "Why does it take 8 weeks to get a permit? Can't we speed that up?" "City bureaucracy," Marcus said with a shrug. "What if we talked to them directly, explained what we're building? Sometimes people move faster when they understand why something matters." Shanice and Marcus exchanged glances. "That's actually not a bad idea," Marcus said slowly. "I usually just file the paperwork and wait. But if we could get a council member interested—" "Vivian knows people, right?" Nathan asked. "Vivian knows everyone," Shanice said. "I'll set up a meeting." By the end of the session, Nathan's head hurt, but he'd contributed something. Not expertise, just common sense from someone who'd spent years navigating systems that didn't care about him. The afternoon meeting with the food service contractor went worse. The contractor, a slick guy named Derek who wore too much cologne, pitched his vision for the community kitchen. "We're thinking upscale cafeteria aesthetic," Derek said, showing photos of gleaming steel counters and modern fixtures, really elevated. "Show people we respect them." Nathan stared at the photos. They looked like something from a trendy downtown restaurant. Beautiful, expensive, completely wrong. "No," he said. Derek blinked. "Excuse me?" "This won't work. Mr. Hayes, I've designed food service operations for 20 years, and I've been poor for 32. Nathan leaned forward. "You make it look like this. People won't feel comfortable. They'll feel judged, like they don't belong in a space this nice." "We want them to feel valued," Derek said stiffly. Valued means functional, clean, welcoming, not intimidating. Nathan pulled out his phone, found a photo he'd taken years ago of the community center near his old apartment. "See this? It's not fancy, but it works. People aren't afraid to walk in. They don't worry about their kids touching things or making a mess." Derek looked at Vivian, clearly expecting her to override Nathan. Vivian looked at the photo, then at Derek. "He's right. Redesign it." "But the aesthetic..." "The aesthetic is that people feel comfortable, not impressed." Vivian's voice was firm. "Make it functional and warm. We're not trying to win design awards." Derek left looking pissed. After he was gone, Nathan turned to Vivian. "Did I just screw that up? You just saved us from building something useless." She smiled. "That's exactly what I need you to do. Push back when something feels wrong." But pushing back, Nathan quickly learned, came with a price. Word spread through the office that the new guy, the one with no degree who used to load trucks, was rejecting proposals from experienced contractors. Some people respected it. Others didn't bother hiding their resentment. Nathan overheard 2 junior executives talking by the coffee machine a week later. "I heard Hayes shot down the Millennium contract," one said. "Of course he did. Guy probably doesn't understand the economics. Vivian's lost her mind. I get the charity case thing, but putting him in charge of a $40 million project." Nathan stood frozen in the hallway, coffee cup in hand. "She's sleeping with him, obviously," the other one said. "Why else would she hire some random warehouse worker?" Nathan's face burned. He wanted to walk in there, confront them. But what would he say? He was a random warehouse worker. He didn't belong here. They were just saying what everyone was probably thinking. He went back to his office and closed the door. That night, Nathan sat in his new apartment, a two-bedroom place in a safer neighborhood, nothing fancy but light years better than the old house, and stared at his laptop. Emma was asleep. The apartment was quiet, and Nathan felt completely alone. His phone rang. Vivian. "Hey," she said. "How was your day?" "Fine." Nathan's voice came out flat. Pause. "That didn't sound fine. I'm just tired." "Nathan, I've been running companies for 10 years. I know what fine sounds like when someone's actually fine. Talk to me." Nathan closed his eyes. "Do you know what people are saying about why you hired me?" "I can guess. Let me hear it anyway." "That I'm a charity case. That you're—" He couldn't make himself say it. "Sleeping with you?" Vivian's voice was matter-of-fact. "Yeah, I heard that rumor yesterday." "And it doesn't bother you?" "It bothers me that people would rather believe I'm making decisions with my vagina than accept that you might actually be qualified." She sighed. "But no, the rumor itself doesn't bother me. I stopped caring what people thought about my personal life a long time ago. I care what they think about me." "I know." Her voice softened. "Nathan, this is going to happen. People are going to question you, doubt you, make assumptions about why you're there. You can either let it destroy you or you can prove them wrong." "How?" "By being so damn good at your job they can't ignore it." Pause. "You made Derek redesign the kitchen because you knew it wouldn't work. You compressed our timeline by 3 weeks because you suggested talking to actual humans instead of just filing paperwork. In 2 weeks, you've already made this project better. That's not charity. That's value." Nathan wanted to believe her, but the voices from the coffee machine kept echoing. "What if I can't do this?" he asked quietly. "Then we'll figure something else out. But Nathan, you haven't failed yet. Don't quit before you've even really started." After they hung up, Nathan sat in the dark living room, listening to the sounds of his new neighborhood. Quieter than the old place. Safer. Emma had her own room now. She decorated it with drawings and the stuffed animals that had been in storage because there hadn't been space before. Things were better. Objectively, measurably better. So why did Nathan feel like he was drowning? The next morning, he walked into the office to find an email waiting from someone named Richard Castellano. Subject line, Community Center Concerns. Nathan opened it with a sinking feeling. "Mr. Hayes, I've been reviewing the project proposals, and I have serious concerns about the direction this initiative is taking. As a board member and major investor, I believe we need to discuss the feasibility of some recent decisions. Please schedule a meeting at your earliest convenience. Richard Castellano, Laurent Industries Board of Directors." Nathan stared at the email. Board member. Major investor. This was someone with actual power, and Nathan had apparently pissed him off. He forwarded it to Vivian with a simple message. "Is this bad?" Her response came back immediately. "It's Richard. He thinks everything is a concern. Don't worry about it." But Nathan did worry about it. He scheduled the meeting for Friday afternoon, spent 2 days stress preparing, and still felt completely unprepared when Richard Castellano walked into the conference room. Richard was exactly what Nathan expected. Mid-60s, expensive suit, the kind of tan that came from golf courses and vacation homes. He shook Nathan's hand with the grip of someone used to being the most important person in the room. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for making time." "Of course." Nathan gestured to a chair. "What can I help you with?" Richard settled into his seat like he was preparing for battle. "I've been reviewing your modifications to the community center plans, the kitchen redesign, the extended operating hours, the walk-in intake policy. These changes are going to cost us an additional $2.3 million. "Yes, sir." Nathan had done the math with Shanice. He knew the numbers. That's a significant budget increase for what amounts to aesthetic preferences. With respect, Mr. Castellano, they're not aesthetic preferences. They're functional necessities. Richard's eyebrow went up. "Explain." Nathan took a breath. This was it. Either he could defend his decisions or prove everyone right that he didn't belong here. "The kitchen redesign isn't about making it less nice," Nathan said. "It's about making it accessible. When you walk into a space that looks expensive, you're self-conscious. You worry about your kids breaking something. You feel like you're not supposed to be there. That defeats the whole purpose." "The purpose is to serve meals." "No, sir. The purpose is to help people." Serving meals is just one part of it. Nathan pulled up photos on his laptop. This is the community center I used to take Emma to. It's not pretty, but you know what? People showed up. They weren't afraid to ask questions or admit they needed help, because it felt like a place for them, not a place they were being allowed into. Richard studied the photos without expression. As for the extended hours, Nathan continued, we're trying to serve people who work non-traditional shifts, single parents who work nights, people with 2 or 3 jobs. If we're only open 9 to 5, we're basically telling them they don't matter. It's a resource allocation issue. It's a people issue. Nathan felt his frustration rising. I know you're looking at spreadsheets and seeing budget lines, but I'm looking at actual human beings who need help. Maria, who works 2 jobs and her kid is failing school because she can't afford tutoring. James, who's living in his car because he can't find work. These aren't numbers. They're people. Richard leaned back in his chair. You're very passionate. Yes, sir. Passion doesn't balance budgets. No. But it makes sure we're building something that actually works instead of something that looks good on paper and fails everyone it's supposed to help. The room was silent. Richard stared at Nathan for a long moment. Vivian said you'd be like this, Richard finally said. Like what? Difficult. He almost smiled. She said you'd fight for what you believed in, that you wouldn't back down just because someone with money disagreed with you. Nathan wasn't sure if this was a compliment or a criticism. Mr. Hayes, I've been on this board for 8 years. I've seen a lot of initiatives come and go. Most of them fail because they're designed by people who've never lived the problems they're trying to solve. They mean well, but they don't understand. Richard stood. You understand. That makes you either the best asset this project has or a liability waiting to happen. Which one do you think I am? I think you're both. Richard moved toward the door. The extended hours stay. The kitchen redesign stays. But you need to find $2.3 million in savings somewhere else. Show me you can fight for what matters and still make the economics work. After he left, Nathan sat alone in the conference room, his heart still pounding. He'd either just won or spectacularly failed, and he couldn't tell which. His phone buzzed. Vivian. How'd it go with Richard? Nathan typed back. He told me to find $2.3 million in savings. Good. Good? How is that good? He didn't kill the project. That means he respects you. Now prove him right. Nathan spent the next week buried in budgets with Shanice, looking for places to trim without cutting services. They found savings in bulk purchasing agreements, negotiated better rates with contractors, cut some fancy architectural flourishes that looked good but served no functional purpose. 10 days later, Nathan sent Richard an email with a revised budget that came in $300,000 under the original projection, even with Nathan's modifications included. Richard's response was 2 words, well done. But the victory felt hollow because that same week, Nathan missed Emma's school play. He'd been in meetings all day, lost track of time, and by the time he remembered, the play was halfway over. He raced to the school, arrived during curtain call, and found Emma in the hallway afterward with Mrs. Peterson, her teacher. Daddy! Emma ran to him, still in her costume. She'd played a tree in the forest scene. I'm so sorry, baby. I got stuck at work and it's okay. But her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Mrs. Peterson gave Nathan a look that said she'd seen this before. Busy parent, good intentions, missing the moments that mattered. In the car, Emma was quiet. You were great, Nathan tried. Mrs. Peterson said you didn't forget any of your lines. There were only 3 lines. Still, I'm really proud of you. Emma stared out the window. You said you'd be around more. That was the whole point of the new job. The words cut deep because she was right. Nathan had been working longer hours at Laurent Industries than he ever had at the warehouse. Different kind of exhausted, but exhausted nonetheless. You're right, Nathan said quietly. I messed up. I'm sorry. Everyone else's parents were there. I know. You promised, Daddy. Nathan pulled into their apartment parking lot and turned to face his daughter. You're absolutely right. I promised I'd be around more, and I haven't been. I've been so focused on the job and proving I can do it that I forgot why I took it in the first place. Emma's eyes were shiny with tears she was trying not to shed. I don't care about the job. I just want you. The sentence destroyed him. That night, after Emma went to bed, Nathan called Vivian. I need to figure out better boundaries, he said without preamble. I'm working too much. I missed Emma's play tonight. Okay. Vivian's voice was understanding. What do you need? I don't know. I feel like I'm failing at both things. At work, people think I'm a charity case who doesn't belong there. At home, I'm the dad who's never around. I can't win. Nathan, can I tell you something nobody tells you about success? What? It doesn't solve everything. Money helps. Having a career that matters helps. But you still have to figure out how to be a person, how to be a parent, how to set limits. She paused. I don't have kids, but I've screwed up plenty of relationships by working too much. It's easy to let work consume you when you're trying to prove something. So what do I do? You set boundaries. You tell people no sometimes. You leave at 5 when you need to. Her voice was firm. Nathan, you're not saving lives. If you miss a meeting to go to Emma's play, the center will still get built. People already think I don't work hard enough. People are always going to think something. Let them. The next morning, Nathan blocked out his calendar every day from 4 to 8 p.m. No meetings, no calls. Time for Emma. Shanice raised an eyebrow when she saw it, but didn't comment. Richard Castellano noticed. Leaving early today? He asked one afternoon when Nathan packed up at 4:30. My daughter has a science fair. Richard nodded slowly. My kids are grown now. You know what I regret? Missing their stuff. All those games and plays and science fairs I skipped because work was more important. He met Nathan's eyes. Don't make my mistakes. The science fair was in the school gymnasium. Emma had built a volcano, a real one this time, not just the baking soda version from class. She'd spent 2 weeks on it, researching magma chambers and tectonic plates, building a cross-section model that showed the interior structure. This is incredible, Nathan said, crouching down to her level. You really think so? Emma's face lit up. I know so. You worked so hard on this. When the judges came around, Emma explained her project with confidence. She didn't win. That went to a 6th grader with a project about solar power. But she got an honorable mention, and her smile when they gave her the certificate made every missed meeting worth it. At work, Nathan started finding his rhythm. He learned when to push back and when to compromise, when to trust the experts and when to inject his own perspective. The community center was taking shape, moving from blueprints to actual construction. 6 months in, they broke ground. The ceremony was small, just the core team, some city officials, and a few journalists. Vivian gave a speech about community investment and sustainable development. Then she handed the shovel to Nathan. You should do this part, she said quietly. This is your project. It's our project. She pressed the shovel into his hands. Go on. Nathan pushed the shovel into the dirt, feeling the weight of it. Behind him, cameras flashed. People clapped. And for just a moment, Nathan let himself believe he actually belonged there. But that night, alone in his apartment after Emma went to sleep, Nathan looked at the photos from the groundbreaking and barely recognized himself. Clean-shaven, professional clothes, standing next to a billionaire like they were equals. Who was this person? His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. Hello? Is this Nathan Hayes? The voice was young, male, uncertain. Yeah, who's this? My name's Tyler. I work at Morrison Warehouse. Martinez gave me your number. Nathan sat up straight. Morrison Warehouse, his old job. Is everything okay? Did something happen to Martinez? No, nothing like that. Martinez said you might be able to help me. Tyler's voice cracked. I got a kid, 3 years old. His mom left last year. I'm trying to hold it together, but the pay isn't enough, and I don't know what to do. Martinez said you used to be where I am, said you got out. Nathan closed his eyes, remembering that desperate feeling, the walls closing in, the impossible math of bills versus paycheck. Where are you right now? Nathan asked. My apartment, kids asleep. You eaten today? Pause. Not really, gave my son the last of the food. Nathan checked the time, almost 10 p.m. Tyler, I need you to listen to me. Tomorrow morning, first thing, you're going to go to 1247 Commerce Street. You know where that is? Downtown somewhere? Yeah, there's a community services office there. Ask for a woman named Carol. Tell her Nathan Hayes sent you. She'll help you apply for food assistance, childcare support, whatever you qualify for. I already tried that stuff. They said I make too much. There are other programs. Carol knows them all. She'll help you navigate it. Nathan grabbed a pen, wrote down Tyler's number. And give me your address. I'm going to have food delivered to you tonight. Man, I can't. You can and you will. Your kid needs to eat. You need to eat. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest. After they hung up, Nathan ordered groceries to Tyler's address through an app, enough for 2 weeks. Then he sat in the dark, thinking about how many Tylers were out there, how many single parents working themselves to death, how many kids going to bed hungry. The community center couldn't come fast enough. Over the next few months, Nathan started building something he hadn't expected, relationships with the people the center would serve. He spent time at shelters and food banks, not as a researcher or developer, but as someone who listened. He met families living in cars, single mothers working 3 jobs, elderly people choosing between medicine and food. And slowly, the project shifted. It wasn't just about building a nice facility anymore. It was about creating something that addressed real needs for real people. We need a shower facility, Nathan told the team one day. That's not in the budget, one of the finance people said. When you're homeless, you can't get a job interview if you can't shower, can't show up to court dates, can't do a dozen things that might help you get back on your feet. Nathan had his notes from talking to people. It doesn't have to be fancy, just functional. They found the money. Redesigned part of the facility to include bathroom facilities with showers, lockers, even a small laundry room. Jennifer, the education director, pulled Nathan aside after that meeting. "This is good," she said. "This is exactly what we needed." "What do you mean?" "I've been designing programs for years, but I've been designing them from the outside looking in. You're designing from the inside looking out. There's a difference." Nathan realized she was right. He wasn't trying to solve poverty from a distance. He was building what he wished had existed when he'd been drowning, what Tyler needed right now, what Maria and James and all the people in Vivian's photographs needed. One evening, Nathan and Vivian stood at the construction site, watching the framework of the building go up. It was nearly sunset, the sky turning orange and purple. "It's really happening," Vivian said softly. "Yeah. How are you feeling about it?" Nathan thought about the question. Terrified. Hopeful. Both. Vivian smiled. "That's about right." They stood in comfortable silence, watching workers secure beams and check measurements. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said. "Always." "That night in the alley, 20 years ago, what were you thinking? When I gave you the food?" Vivian was quiet for a long moment. "I was thinking that for the first time in months, someone saw me. Not as a problem or a statistic, just as a person who was hungry." She turned to look at him. "And I thought if someone could be that kind when they barely had anything themselves, maybe the world wasn't completely terrible. I was just a kid trying to do the right thing. So was I. Just trying to survive." She looked back at the building. "We both made it, Nathan. Different paths, but we both made it. And now we get to help other people make it too." Nathan thought about Tyler, about Emma, safe in their apartment, about all the desperate phone calls and late nights and moments of doubt that had led to standing here, watching a dream become steel and concrete. "Thank you," he said, "for finding me, for trusting me with this. Thank you for giving a cold, hungry kid your jacket." Vivian's voice was thick with emotion. "You saved my life that night, Nathan. Everything I've built started with believing I was worth saving. You gave me that." The sun dipped below the horizon, and the construction lights came on, bathing the skeleton of the building in harsh white light. In a few months, it would have walls, then windows, then the equipment and furniture and all the pieces that would transform it from an idea into a place where people could get help, where families like Nathan's used to be could find hope, where Tyler and his son could get food and support and a fighting chance, where Maria could get tutoring for her kids and James could get job training, and people who felt invisible could finally be seen. Nathan pulled out his phone and took a picture of the construction site. "For Emma," he explained, "so she can see what we're building." But really, it was for himself. Evidence that impossible things could happen, that kindness could echo across decades, that warehouse workers could become directors and homeless children could become billionaires and broken people could build something beautiful. That night, Nathan sent the photo to Emma with a message. This is what I'm working on. A place to help people. Like how people helped us. Her response came back immediately. I'm proud of you, Daddy. 3 words that meant everything. 9 months after groundbreaking, the walls were up, and Nathan stood inside what would become the main reception area, hard hat on, clipboard in hand, arguing with a contractor about doorways. They need to be wider, Nathan said, pointing at the entrance frame. The contractor, a heavy-set man named Frank, who'd been building things since before Nathan was born, shook his head. That's code compliant. 36 inches. Code compliant isn't good enough. Someone shows up here in a wheelchair with 2 kids and a bag of groceries. They can't get through. Make it 48. That's going to cost... I know what it's going to cost. Make it 48. Frank looked at him for a long moment, then made a note on his own clipboard. You're worse than Vivian. I'll take that as a compliment. After Frank walked away, Shanice appeared at Nathan's elbow. You know he's going to bill us extra for that. Yep. And Richard's going to have a fit about budget overruns again. Probably. Nathan turned to face her. But the first time someone in a wheelchair can't get through that door with their kid, we've failed. I'm not building something that looks good on paper but doesn't work in practice. Shanice smiled. You've gotten comfortable saying no. Took me long enough. She wasn't wrong. The uncertain, apologetic Nathan, who'd started this job, had been slowly replaced by someone who knew what he was fighting for. He still felt like an imposter sometimes, still had moments of crushing self-doubt, but he'd learned to push through them instead of letting them paralyze him. The community center was scheduled to open in 3 months. 3 months until all of this became real. Until actual families walked through those doors, the wider doors Nathan was insisting on, looking for help. The pressure was crushing. That afternoon, Nathan had a meeting with the staffing team about hiring. They'd received over 300 applications for 20 positions. Most were overqualified. Social workers with master's degrees, teachers with decades of experience, people who could work anywhere but wanted to work somewhere that mattered. We need to make our final selections by next week, the HR director said, spreading resumes across the conference table. Nathan picked one up at random. Bachelor's degree in social work. 5 years of experience. Glowing references. Perfect on paper. He set it down and picked up another. High school diploma. No formal experience. Currently working retail. Cover letter that said she'd been homeless as a teenager and wanted to help others avoid what she'd gone through. This one, Nathan said, holding up the second resume. Interview her. The HR director frowned. She doesn't have the qualifications. She has the one qualification that matters. She's lived it. Nathan set the resume in the interview pile. I want at least half our staff to be people who've experienced what our clients are experiencing. People who understand what it's like to need help. That's unconventional. Good. Conventional hasn't been working. Nathan stood. Look, I'm not saying we shouldn't hire experts. We need social workers and teachers and people with training. But we also need people who can look someone in the eye and say, I know what you're going through and actually mean it. He walked out before anyone could argue, his heart pounding. 6 months ago, he would have deferred to the experts. Now he was overruling them. The change terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. His phone buzzed as he reached his office. Tyler. Hey man, I got the job. Start Monday. Thank you. Nathan smiled and typed back, You got yourself the job. I just pointed you in the right direction. Still, you saved my life. Nathan stared at those words. He'd heard them before, from Vivian, about a jacket he barely remembered giving. Now Tyler was saying them about groceries and a phone number. Small acts that felt insignificant in the moment, but meant everything to someone drowning. Maybe that's all any of them could do. Small acts, over and over, until they added up to something bigger. That weekend, Nathan took Emma to see the center. She'd been asking for months, and he'd been putting it off, wanting to wait until it looked more finished. But it was Saturday morning, the construction crew was off, and Emma had been patient long enough. They parked in the dirt lot that would eventually be paved, and Nathan helped Emma into a hard hat that was comically too big for her head. This is so cool, she said, her voice echoing in the hard hat. Come on, I'll show you around. They walked through what would become the reception area, past the framed walls of the community kitchen, through the education wing where after-school programs would run. Emma asked questions about everything. Why was that room so big? What were those wires for? Why did it smell like sawdust? Nathan answered each question, watching her face light up as she imagined the space filled with people instead of equipment and building materials. And this, Nathan said, opening a door to a large open room, is going to be the recreation center. Basketball court, exercise equipment, space for kids to just hang out. Emma walked into the middle of the empty room, her footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. Will there be kids like me here? What do you mean? Kids whose families don't have a lot of money, who need help. Nathan's throat tightened. Yeah, baby, exactly like that. Emma turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. Is this why you've been working so hard? Why you couldn't come to my play that one time? Yeah, I'm sorry about that, by the way. I really am. I know, Daddy. She walked back to him. But this is important. Helping people is important. Mom would have liked this. Nathan knelt down to her level. You think so? Definitely. She always said we should help people when we can, even when it's hard. Emma hugged him suddenly. I'm really proud of you. For the second time in as many minutes, Nathan felt tears threatening. I'm proud of you too, Em. For understanding, for being patient with me while I figure all this out. You're doing good, Daddy. They spent another hour exploring the building before heading home. Emma chattered the whole drive about what the center would look like when it was finished, spinning elaborate stories about the families who would use it and the programs they'd have. Nathan listened, amazed as always by his daughter's capacity for hope. She'd been through so much, losing her mother, years of poverty, watching her father struggle, and somehow she'd come out of it believing in the possibility of good things. Monday morning brought a new crisis. The HVAC contractor had discovered a problem with the ventilation system that would require rerouting ductwork through half the building. The fix would take 3 weeks and cost $80,000. We don't have 3 weeks, Nathan said, staring at the revised timeline Shanice had projected on the screen. The opening is locked in. We've got city officials coming, the mayor's going to speak, there are families counting on this. I know, Shanice rubbed her temples. But if we don't fix it, we fail inspection, and without passing inspection, we can't open anyway. Nathan looked at Marcus. Is there any way to speed this up? Not without paying for overtime crews, which would double the cost. So we're looking at either delaying the opening or blowing the budget. That about sums it up, Marcus said. Nathan grabbed his phone and texted Vivian. We have a problem. She was in his office 15 minutes later. Nathan explained the HVAC situation while she listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. How much would it cost to run overtime crews? Vivian asked. About $160,000 total, Shanice answered. Vivian turned to Nathan. What do you think we should do? The question caught him off guard. This was a money decision, a Vivian decision, but she was asking him. I think we eat the cost and keep the timeline, Nathan said slowly. We've already publicized the opening date. Families are planning around it. We've got people who've applied for jobs expecting to start next month. If we delay, we lose momentum and trust. $160,000 is a lot of money, Vivian said. I know, but disappointing people who are counting on us costs more. Vivian smiled slightly. Okay, make it happen. Shanice and Marcus exchanged glances but didn't argue. After they left, Vivian stayed. That was a good call. You were going to approve it anyway. Maybe, but I wanted to see what you'd say. She sat down across from him. Nathan, you've changed since you started here. You trust your instincts now. I'm still figuring it out. We all are, every day. She paused. Can I tell you what Richard said to me last week? Do I want to know? He said hiring you was the smartest decision I've made in years. That you've brought something to this project no amount of experience or education could replicate. Nathan stared at her. Richard said that. The same Richard who told me to find millions in savings and looked at me like I was an idiot for the first 6 months? The very same. Vivian's smile was genuine. You won him over. You won most of them over. The people who still doubt you are the ones who aren't worth worrying about. I worry about them anyway. I know. That's part of what makes you good at this. That night, Nathan stayed late reviewing program proposals for the education wing. Jennifer had submitted plans for after-school tutoring, summer programs, parent education classes. All good ideas, all well designed. But something felt missing. Nathan pulled out his phone and called her. Jennifer, it's Nathan. Sorry to bother you so late. No problem. What's up? I'm looking at the education programs. They're great, really solid, but I'm not seeing anything for teenagers. Pause. We have the tutoring program for middle and high school students. Yeah, but that's academic. What about kids who don't care about academics, who've already checked out of school? What do we offer them? Nathan, if they're not in school, they still need somewhere to go, something to do, someone to give a damn about them. Nathan thought about his own teenage years, bouncing between relatives, feeling like nobody saw him. What if we had a program specifically for at-risk teens, not school-focused, just a safe place to exist? Maybe teach them practical skills, cooking, basic car repair, whatever. Give them something besides street corners. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. That's actually not a bad idea. Let me think about it. Talk to some youth specialists, see what we can design. Thanks. And Jennifer, make sure whatever we design doesn't feel like school. These kids are already written off by the education system. We need to meet them where they are, not where we think they should be. After they hung up, Nathan sat in his dark office, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, kids were making bad decisions because they didn't have good options, falling through cracks that nobody bothered to fill. The community center couldn't save everyone. Nathan knew that, but it could save someone, maybe a lot of someone's. His phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Hayes? This is Maria Gonzalez. I met you a few months ago at St. Catherine's Food Bank. You gave me your card. Nathan remembered. Single mother, 3 kids, working 2 jobs. Of course, what can I do for you? You said to call if I needed help. Well, her voice cracked. I just got evicted. I have 3 days to find somewhere to go and I don't know what to do. Nathan's heart sank. Where are you right now? My apartment. With my kids. They're asleep. They don't know yet. Okay, listen to me. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call this number. He gave her the direct line for a housing advocacy group Vivian had connected him with. Ask for Susan. Tell her I sent you. She'll help you navigate emergency housing, temporary shelters if needed, and start working on long-term solutions. I can't go to a shelter. My kids, I know. We're going to do everything we can to avoid that. But Maria, you need to call Susan first thing tomorrow. Can you do that? Yes. Okay, thank you. And Maria, the community center opens in 3 months. When it does, there will be resources there too. Legal aid, housing assistance, all of it. You're not alone in this. After they hung up, Nathan sat in the darkness, feeling the weight of it all. Maria was just one person, one family, but there were hundreds of Marias out there. Thousands, all struggling, all one emergency away from disaster. 3 months felt like an eternity when people needed help now. Nathan grabbed his jacket and left the office, exhaustion pulling at him. In the parking garage, he found Vivian leaning against her car, still in her work clothes. You're here late, Nathan said. So are you. She straightened. I saw your light on, thought about coming up, but you looked pretty focused. Just finished a call with someone who needs help we can't give her yet. Maria? Nathan nodded. How did you know? She called me too. I've already contacted Susan, and I'm covering her first month's rent at a temporary apartment while we figure out permanent housing. Vivian's voice was matter of fact. She won't be on the street, Nathan. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Just like you didn't have to give food to a homeless kid 20 years ago. But you did anyway. She smiled. We help when we can. That's the deal. They stood in the empty parking garage, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Can I ask you something? Nathan said. Does it ever feel like too much? Like no matter what you do, it's never enough? Every single day. Vivian's voice was quiet. I could give away every dollar I have, and there would still be people suffering. Still be kids going hungry. Still be families losing their homes. It's overwhelming when you think about it. So how do you keep going? I don't think about all of it. I think about the one person I can help right now. Maria today, someone else tomorrow. One person at a time, one day at a time. It's the only way to stay sane. Nathan thought about Tyler getting that job, about the woman from the food bank whose resume he'd put in the interview pile, about Emma sleeping safely in their apartment instead of wondering if they'd be evicted. One person at a time. Thank you, he said. for all of this, for believing I could do this when I didn't believe it myself. You're welcome. But Nathan, you need to start believing it. Because in 3 months, you're going to be standing in that building watching it fill with people who need help. And you're going to have to trust that what we've built will work. What if it doesn't? Then we fix it, we adapt, we learn. Vivian unlocked her car. But I don't think it's going to fail. Know why? Why? Because it was designed by someone who knows what it's like to need help. And that makes all the difference. The final 3 months were chaos. Furniture arrived and had to be assembled. Staff training sessions ran long. Technology systems malfunctioned. The shower facility Nathan had insisted on developed a leak that took a week to fix. Permits were delayed, then rushed through. The kitchen equipment was delivered to the wrong loading dock and damaged in transit. Nathan barely slept. He was at the center by 6 most mornings, often didn't leave until 10 at night. Emma complained that he was working too much again, and she was right, but there was no way around it. The opening was locked in. The mayor was coming. Families were counting on them. 1 week before the scheduled opening, during a final walkthrough, Nathan found Jennifer standing in the teen rec room looking troubled. "What's wrong?" he asked. "This space. I've been trying to design programming for it, and everything feels forced, like I'm trying to trick teenagers into learning instead of actually giving them something they want." Nathan looked around the room, basketball hoops at one end, some tables and chairs, painted walls. It looked like every recreation room he'd ever seen. "What do teenagers actually want?" he asked. "I don't know. That's the problem. I work with kids, but I don't understand teenagers anymore. They're different than when I was young." Nathan thought about the kids he'd seen hanging out behind the convenience store near his old apartment, bored, restless, looking for trouble because there was nothing better to do. "What if we asked them?" he said. "Asked who?" "Actual teenagers, the ones who are going to use this space. What if we brought in a group before we open and just let them tell us what they want?" Jennifer's face brightened. "That's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that?" "Because you've been designing programs for kids your whole career. You're used to being the expert." Nathan smiled. "Sometimes the expert needs to shut up and listen." They brought in 15 teenagers the following week. Kids from the neighborhood, some from decent homes, some from rough situations, all skeptical about what 2 adults wanted from them. Nathan let Jennifer lead the conversation while he mostly listened. "We want this to be your space," Jennifer explained, "but we need to know what you'd actually use. What would make you want to come here instead of hanging out wherever you usually hang out?" The kids exchanged glances, waiting for the catch. "Seriously," Nathan added, "we're not going to judge you or tell you what you should want. We just need the truth." Slowly, they started talking. They wanted music equipment, a space where they could practice and record without neighbors complaining. They wanted computers with editing software, not just for homework, but for making videos and art. They wanted a kitchen where they could cook their own food, learn recipes, not be served meals like little kids. They wanted space to just exist without adults hovering. Nathan and Jennifer took notes, asked questions, listened. By the end of the session, they had a completely different vision for the teen space. Less structured programming, more autonomous access. Resources without strings attached. "This is going to cost more," Jennifer said after the kids left. "I know, but it's what they need. We'll find the money." They found it by cutting other programs that looked good on paper, but nobody had actually asked for. By the time opening day arrived, the center looked nothing like the original plans. It had evolved, shaped by the actual people it was meant to serve. The morning of the opening dawned clear and cold. Nathan arrived at the center at 5 a.m., too nervous to sleep. Workers were already there, putting finishing touches on everything. Shanice was coordinating with caterers. Marcus was fixing a door that stuck. Jennifer was arranging furniture. Vivian found Nathan standing in the main lobby, staring at the space. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Terrified. You?" "Same." She stood beside him. "We did it, though. Actually did it. We haven't done anything yet. Nobody's even walked through the door." "They will. In about 4 hours, this place is going to be full of people." Nathan thought about all those people. Maria and her kids, Tyler and his son, the teenagers who'd helped design their own space, families he hadn't met yet who were counting on the center to help them through their worst moments. "What if we forgot something important?" Nathan asked. What if there's some huge gap in our services? Then we'll fill it. This isn't a one-and-done thing, Nathan. This is going to evolve, grow, change as we learn what works and what doesn't. Nathan's phone buzzed. Emma, texting from the apartment where Mrs. Kim was watching her until the ceremony started. Good luck today, Daddy. You're going to be amazing. He showed Vivian the text. Smart kid, Vivian said. You should listen to her. By 9 a.m., people were arriving. City officials, board members, donors, journalists. The mayor showed up with an entourage, ready to cut the ribbon and make speeches about community investment. But Nathan was watching the families who'd started gathering on the sidewalk. Parents with young kids, teenagers in groups, elderly people who'd walked from the bus stop. These were the people who actually mattered, the ones who would determine if the center succeeded or failed. The ceremony started at 10. The mayor spoke about economic development and public-private partnerships. Richard Castellano talked about Laurent Industries' commitment to community. Vivian gave a speech about the importance of investing in people. Then Vivian gestured for Nathan to join her at the podium. I'm not doing a speech, Nathan said quietly. Yes, you are. These people need to hear from you. Nathan's heart hammered as he stepped up to the microphone, looking out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces, some he recognized, most he didn't. I'm not good at speeches, he started, and his voice cracked. Someone in the back laughed, but it was kind. 6 years ago, I was working night shifts at a warehouse, barely keeping food on the table for my daughter. I know what it's like to need help and not know where to find it, to feel invisible, to think nobody cares. He looked at Vivian, who nodded encouragement. This center exists because someone showed me kindness when I had nothing to offer in return. And that kindness changed my life. We built this place hoping it can be that for someone else. A place where you're seen, where you matter, where you can get the help you need without judgment or shame. His eyes found Maria in the crowd, holding her youngest daughter. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to show up every day and do our best to help however we can. One person at a time, one family at a time. That's all any of us can do. He stepped back from the microphone to applause. Vivian squeezed his hand briefly before moving forward to cut the ribbon with the mayor. And then the doors opened and people started flowing in. Nathan spent the next hour walking through the center, watching families explore. Kids ran through the recreation area, parents lined up at the intake desk, asking about food assistance and job training. Teenagers clustered around the music equipment, tentatively picking up instruments. Tyler found Nathan near the community kitchen. Man, this is incredible. I can't believe you built all this. We built it. You and me and everyone else who needed it. Nathan gestured around. This is for all of us. Maria appeared with her 3 kids, her eyes shiny with tears. Thank you, she said, for everything. The apartment, calling Susan, all of it. You saved us. You saved yourself. I just pointed you toward some resources. It was more than that. She hugged him, quick and fierce. It was hope. You gave us hope. As the day wore on, the center filled with noise and life and the messy reality of people getting help. Not everyone was polite. Some were angry, frustrated with systems that had failed them. Others were suspicious, waiting for the catch. But slowly, staff members, many of whom had been in these same situations, connected with people, explained programs, started building trust. Emma arrived with Mrs. Kim in the afternoon, and Nathan showed her around the center now that it was full of people instead of empty promise. It's so loud, Emma said, eyes wide. Yeah, that's how you know it's working. They walked through every area, Emma asking questions about what people were doing and why. In the education wing, a mother was meeting with a tutor about her son's reading struggles. In the job training center, someone was practicing interview skills. In the teen space, kids were already making music. You did this, Daddy, Emma said proudly. Miss Laurent and I did it together, and a lot of other people. But you're the one who made sure it would actually help people. That's what Ms. Laurent said. Nathan looked around at the controlled chaos, at lives being slowly redirected towards something better, and felt the weight of responsibility settle over him like a physical thing. This was just day 1. Tomorrow they'd come back. And the day after that. And the day after that. People would need help. Resources would run short. Problems would emerge that nobody anticipated. There would be failures and frustrations and moments when Nathan wondered if any of it mattered. But then he saw Tyler's son laughing in the children's area, playing with toys while his father talked to a job counselor. Saw Maria's oldest working with a tutor, actually smiling. Saw a teenager who'd been sleeping in her car last week signing up for programs. One person at a time, one day at a time. As the sun started setting and the first day wound down, Nathan found Vivian standing at the window in what had become her office at the center, a smaller space than her downtown headquarters, but she insisted on being here regularly. "We did it," she said without turning around. "We did." Nathan joined her at the window, watching the last few families leave for the evening. "Thank you for all of this, for tracking me down, for trusting me, for building something that actually matters." Vivian turned to face him. "Nathan, I need to tell you something." Something in her voice made him nervous. "Okay, I didn't just build this center to help people, I built it to prove something to myself." She paused. "That success doesn't have to separate you from where you came from. That you can have money and power and still remember what it was like to have nothing. That kindness isn't weakness. You've proven all of that." "We've proven it together," she smiled. "And now we get to keep proving it every single day." Nathan thought about the jacket he'd given away 20 years ago, never imagining it would lead here. To this building, this partnership, this chance to help people the way he'd once needed help. 20 years, he said, from a jacket in the rain to all of this. "Kindness has a long memory," Vivian said softly, "and sometimes it comes back in ways you never expected." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the lights of the center glow against the darkening sky, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new people who needed help and new chances to make a difference. One person at a time. One day at a time. One act of kindness rippling outward across time, touching lives in ways neither of them could fully measure, but both of them believed in completely. 6 months after opening, Nathan sat in his office at the community center, staring at numbers that didn't make sense. They'd served over 2,000 families in that time. The job training program had a 73% placement rate. The after-school tutoring had waiting lists. By every metric that mattered, the center was succeeding. So why did the budget report show them running 20% over projections? "Because we keep saying yes," Shanice said from the doorway. She'd apparently been standing there long enough to read his expression. "Every time someone needs something we didn't plan for, we find a way to give it to them." "That's the point, though, isn't it? To help people?" "Yes, but we also have to stay solvent." She came in and sat down. "Nathan, we're burning through reserves. At this rate, we'll be in trouble by next year." Nathan rubbed his face. "So what do? Start turning people away?" "We need to either cut services or find more funding." "I'm not cutting services, not when they're working." "Then we need to talk to Vivian about expanding the donor base, maybe some fundraising events. Grant applications." Shanice paused. "Or we need to start charging fees for some programs." "No," Nathan's voice was sharp. "The minute we start charging, we exclude the people who need us most. That's not negotiable. Then we're back to finding more money." After Shanice left, Nathan called Vivian. She was in New York for meetings, but answered on the second ring. "Budget problems?" she asked without preamble. "How did you know?" "Because I looked at the same report this morning. We're helping more people than we projected." "That's a good thing." "It is. It's also expensive." Vivian sighed. "Nathan, I can cover the shortfall. That's not a problem. But we need to think long-term. My money isn't infinite." The words stung more than they should have. Nathan had gotten too comfortable assuming Vivian would always be there to catch them when they fell. "What if we did fundraising?" Nathan asked. "Real fundraising, not just asking you to write bigger checks." "I'm listening." "A gala, maybe. Get people to donate. Show them what we're doing, why it matters." "You hate galas." "I've never been to a gala." "Trust me, you'll hate them." But Vivian's tone was amused. "Although you're not wrong. We could probably raise significant money if we did it right. Get some of the other companies involved. Make it a big deal." "Will you help me plan it?" "Of course. But Nathan, you'll have to attend. Shake hands. Make small talk with wealthy people. Convince them to care about something that doesn't directly benefit them." Nathan thought about the single mother who'd come in yesterday, crying because her son finally had clean clothes for school thanks to the laundry facility. About Tyler, who'd gotten promoted at his new job and could finally afford a real apartment. I can do that, Nathan said. For them, I can do anything. Planning a fundraising gala turned out to be more complicated than building the entire community center. There were seating charts and catering menus and donor levels and silent auctions. Vivian brought in an event planner who spoke in a language Nathan didn't understand, throwing around terms like aspirational branding and engagement metrics. I just want people to give us money to help families, Nathan said during one particularly frustrating planning meeting. The event planner, a thin woman named Claudia who wore glasses that probably cost more than Nathan's first car, gave him a patient smile. That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Hayes. We're just packaging it in a way that makes donors feel good about giving. Why do we have to make them feel good? Helping people should be its own reward. Because rich people don't give unless they get something back, Vivian said bluntly. Recognition, status, tax deductions, whatever. That's how this works. Nathan hated it, but he went along with it. They scheduled the gala for 3 months out, sent invitations to everyone in Vivian's extensive network, and started putting together materials to show what the center had accomplished. Meanwhile, the center kept running into problems that money couldn't easily fix. A teenager named Marcus, not the architect, a different Marcus, had been coming to the teen space regularly, using the music equipment, staying out of trouble. Then he got arrested for selling drugs. Not at the center, but close enough that it made the news. Parents started asking if the center was attracting the wrong element. Some talked about keeping their kids away. Nathan called a community meeting to address it. 50 people showed up, most of them angry or scared. Nathan stood at the front of the room with Shanice beside him. No prepared speech, no corporate talking points. I know you're worried, he started. A kid who uses our facility got arrested. And yeah, that's concerning. But I want to tell you about Marcus. He pulled up a photo on the projector. Marcus at the center, headphones on, working on music. Marcus is 16, his dad's in prison. His mom works 3 jobs. He's been raising his 2 younger brothers basically by himself since he was 13. He comes here because it's the only place he feels like he can breathe, where he can make music instead of making bad choices. Nathan paused, looking at the crowd. Did he screw up? Yeah. He made a terrible decision and now he's facing consequences. But you know what he told me when I visited him after he got arrested? He said the center was the only place that made him think maybe he could be something other than what everyone expected. A woman in the back raised her hand. That's very sad, Mr. Hayes, but I don't want my daughter around kids who sell drugs. I get that. I have a daughter too. But here's the thing. We can either be a place that writes kids off the minute they make a mistake, or we can be a place that believes people can change. And if we start picking and choosing who deserves help based on whether they're perfect, we're not actually helping anyone. So you're saying we should just accept criminal behavior? I'm saying Marcus doesn't get to come back until he completes his probation and proves he's serious about changing. But when he's ready, we're going to give him that chance, because that's what this place is for. The meeting went on for another hour. Some people left satisfied. Others left angry. But Nathan slept that night knowing he'd made the right call, even if it wasn't the popular one. Emma was growing up faster than Nathan could process. She was 9 now, more confident, asking harder questions about the world. One night over dinner, she asked something that stopped Nathan cold. Daddy, what happened to the little girl Ms. Laurent used to be? Nathan set down his fork. What do you mean? She was homeless when she was a kid, right? Like sleeping outside and hungry and stuff? Yeah. So where did that girl go? When did she stop being scared? Nathan thought about Vivian in her office, commanding meetings, making million-dollar decisions. Then he thought about her standing in the parking garage that night, admitting she still had nightmares about the alley. I don't think she did stop being scared, Nathan said slowly. I think she just learned to do things even when she's scared. Are you scared? Sometimes. Yeah. Of what? Nathan looked at his daughter, trying to figure out how to explain adult fears to a 9-year-old. I'm scared I'll let people down, that I'll make a wrong decision and hurt someone, that I'm not good enough at my job. Emma considered this seriously. But you do it anyway. Yeah. That's what Mom used to say brave means, doing it anyway. There it was again, Sarah's wisdom echoing across years, still teaching both of them. The gala approached faster than Nathan wanted. He had to rent a tux, which felt absurd. Vivian offered to buy him one, but Nathan insisted on renting. He wasn't that person yet. Maybe never would be. The night of the event, Nathan stood in front of the mirror in his apartment, adjusting his bow tie for the 10th time, feeling like a kid playing dress-up. "You look fancy," Emma said from the doorway. "I look ridiculous." "No, you look like someone important." Nathan turned to face her. "I'm not important, Em. I just work with important people." "Daddy, you help families. That's literally the most important job there is." Mrs. Kim arrived to watch Emma for the evening, and Nathan drove to the hotel where the gala was being held. The ballroom was enormous, decorated with flowers that probably cost more than Nathan's monthly rent. Round tables with white linens, a stage with a podium, waiters circulating with champagne. Nathan grabbed a glass just to have something to hold. "You look terrified," Vivian said, appearing at his elbow. She was wearing a dark blue dress that probably cost more than his car, her hair done in a way that screamed professional styling. "I am terrified." "Good. Use it. When you talk to donors, let them see you care. That's more valuable than polish." "I have to talk to them? That's literally why you're here." She steered him toward a group of well-dressed people. "Come on, I'll introduce you." The next 2 hours were a blur of handshakes and small talk. Nathan met CEOs and investors and people with more money than sense. Most were polite but distant, treating the gala like any other social obligation. But some genuinely seemed to care. A woman named Patricia, who ran a tech company, pulled Nathan aside. "I grew up in poverty," she said quietly. "Section 8 housing, food stamps, the whole thing. What you're building matters. Tell me what you need." Nathan spent 20 minutes talking to her about programs and families and the difference between charity and dignity. By the end, Patricia had pledged $100,000. "Just like that?" Nathan asked, stunned. "Just like that. Because you're doing it right." She handed him her card. "Call me if you need more. I mean it." During dinner, Vivian gave a speech about the center's impact. Then she surprised Nathan by calling him to the stage. "I'm going to let our Director of Community Outreach tell you why this matters," she said. Nathan walked to the podium on shaky legs, looking out at 300 wealthy people in formal wear, and forgot every word he'd planned to say. Hi," his voice echoed awkwardly. Someone in the back laughed. Nathan took a breath and decided to just tell the truth. 6 years ago, I was one eviction notice away from being homeless with my 8-year-old daughter. I worked night shifts loading trucks and still couldn't make rent. I felt invisible, like the world didn't care if I existed or not. The room had gone quiet. Then someone showed me kindness I didn't deserve and hadn't earned, and that kindness gave me a chance to build a different life. Not just for me, but for my daughter, and eventually for thousands of other families. He pulled out his phone and brought up a photo of Maria with her 3 kids at the center's Thanksgiving dinner. "This is Maria. 6 months ago, she was facing eviction. Now she has stable housing, her kids are in after-school programs, and she's training for a better job. That happened because we created a place that treats people with dignity, that sees them as human beings worth investing in, not problems to solve." Nathan showed another photo. Tyler with his son. "This is Tyler. He was living paycheck to paycheck, skipping meals so his kid could eat. Now he's employed full-time and his son is thriving in our early childhood program." He looked up from his phone. "We've served over 2,000 families in 6 months, but we can't keep doing it without help. Not handouts, partnership. Because poverty isn't an individual failure, it's a system failure. And fixing it requires all of us." Nathan stepped back from the podium to applause that felt genuine. He'd either just bombed spectacularly or done something right. He couldn't tell which. Vivian found him afterward. "You did good. I forgot half of what I was supposed to say. You said what mattered. That's better." By the end of the night, they'd raised over $2 million, enough to cover the budget shortfall and expand programs. Nathan couldn't quite believe it. "People actually care," he said to Vivian as they watched the last donors leave. "Some people. When you help them see why they should." She smiled. "You're getting better at this." "At what? Begging rich people for money?" "At being a leader." The word still didn't fit comfortably, but Nathan was learning to live with discomfort. 3 weeks later, Nathan got a call from a number he didn't recognize. When he answered, a young woman's voice said, "Is this Nathan Hayes?" "Yeah, who's this?" "My name is Rachel. I was in foster care with Vivian a long time ago. She told me to call you if I ever needed help." Nathan sat up straight. "Are you okay? What's going on?" "I'm pregnant and homeless, and I don't know what to do." Nathan was at the center within 20 minutes. Rachel sitting in his office looking terrified and barely 20 years old. He spent an hour just listening to her story, aging out of foster care at 18, bouncing between jobs, ending up on the street, now 5 months pregnant with nowhere to go. "Vivian said you'd understand," Rachel said quietly, "that you've been where I am. Not exactly, but close enough." Nathan pulled up resources on his computer. "Okay, first things first. We're going to get you into temporary housing tonight. Then tomorrow, we're going to connect you with prenatal care, apply for assistance programs, and start figuring out long-term options. I can't afford. We'll figure it out. That's what we do here." By the end of the day, Rachel had a bed in a transitional housing facility, an appointment with a clinic, and a plan. She cried when Nathan walked her out. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." "Because someone helped me when I needed it, and someone helped Vivian when she needed it. That's how this works." After Rachel left, Nathan called Vivian. She came. "I knew she would. How is she?" "Scared, pregnant, homeless, the usual disaster." Nathan paused. "How many people have you sent to me?" "Rachel's the first, but there will be more, if that's okay." "Of course it's okay. That's literally my job." "It's more than a job, Nathan. You know that." He did know that. Somewhere along the way, this had stopped being just employment and become something else. A purpose. A calling. The thing Sarah had always said everyone needs to find. Work that matters, that helps people, that makes the world slightly less terrible. As winter turned to spring, the center continued growing. They added a legal aid clinic, expanded the medical services, started a small business incubation program for people trying to start their own companies but couldn't get traditional funding. Nathan worked with people every day who reminded him of his former self. Desperate, exhausted, trying to hold everything together with nothing but determination and hope. And slowly, he watched them transform. Not into different people, but into versions of themselves that had space to breathe, to dream, to believe things could get better. Emma turned 10. Nathan threw her a birthday party at the center, inviting her school friends but also some of the kids from the after-school program. They played games in the rec room, ate cake in the community kitchen, and Emma beamed the whole time. "This was the best birthday ever," she told Nathan as they cleaned up afterward. "Yeah? Yeah, because I got to share it with people. Mom would have liked that." Nathan's throat tightened. "She would have. She always said the best parties were the ones where everyone felt welcome." "I miss her." "Me too, baby." They stood together in the quiet center, and Nathan thought about how far they'd come. From that tiny, falling-apart house with the eviction notice, from night shifts and skipped meals and constant fear, they'd built something new. Not perfect, not without struggles, but better. So much better. One afternoon, Nathan found Vivian sitting alone in the center's library, reading to a little girl who'd fallen asleep against her shoulder. The sight stopped him in his tracks. Vivian looked up and smiled. She was crying. Her mom's in a meeting with the housing counselor. I told her I'd read until her mom came back. You're good at that. I never had anyone read to me as a kid, so now I do it for others when I get the chance. She carefully shifted the sleeping child. Strange how that works, isn't it? The things we didn't have become the things we give. Nathan sat down across from her. Can I ask you something I've been wondering for a while? Always. That night you showed up at my house. You said you'd been searching for me for 3 years, but why? Really? It wasn't just about repaying a debt. Vivian was quiet for a moment, stroking the little girl's hair absently. When I was young and everything was terrible, I used to tell myself a story about the boy who gave me his jacket. I'd imagined that he grew up to be someone good, someone happy, that his kindness hadn't been punished by the world. She looked up at Nathan. And then when I finally had money and resources, I started looking for you, because I needed to know if my story was true. If good people could survive this world without becoming cruel. Her voice was soft. When I found you working night shifts, barely surviving, still raising your daughter with love despite everything, I realized you were proof. Proof that kindness doesn't make you weak, that struggling doesn't make you less, that people can go through hell and still be decent. I'm not that special, Vivian. You're exactly that special. You just don't see it. She smiled. And I wanted to give you the same chance you gave me, to believe in something better. The little girl stirred, woke up, looked around in confusion until her mother appeared. Vivian handed her over gently, and Nathan watched the interaction, the gratitude in the mother's eyes, the ease with which Vivian connected with someone who had nothing. She'd never forgotten where she came from, never let success separate her from the people she'd once been. 2 years after the center opened, Nathan was sitting in a board meeting when Richard Castellano made an announcement. "I'm retiring from the board," Richard said, "and I'd like to nominate my replacement." Everyone looked surprised. Richard had been on the board since the beginning. "I nominate Nathan Hayes." The room went silent. Nathan stared at Richard. "What? You've proven yourself over the past 2 years. You understand this work better than any of us. You should have a voice in organizational decisions." Richard looked around the table. "All in favor?" Every hand went up, including Vivian's. "I can't be on the board," Nathan protested. "I work for the center. That's a conflict of interest." "You transition into a different role," Vivian explained. "More strategic oversight, less daily operations. We'd hire a new director to handle day-to-day management." "But I like daily operations. I like working with families." "You can still do that, just less directly." Vivian smiled. "Nathan, you've built something incredible. Now it's time to help it grow beyond what we originally imagined. That requires different skills." Nathan wanted to argue, but looking around the table at people who respected him, who'd watched him grow from uncertain warehouse worker to someone who could command a room, he realized they were right. It was time to evolve again. The transition took 6 months. They hired a woman named Keisha to be the new director, someone with a master's in social work and 10 years of experience, but also someone who'd grown up in poverty and understood struggle from the inside. Nathan moved into a strategic role, helping plan expansion to other neighborhoods. They were talking about opening a second center, maybe eventually a third. The ripple effect kept spreading. On the 3-year anniversary of the center's opening, they held a celebration, not a fancy gala, but a community event. Families who'd been served, staff members, donors, everyone who'd been part of the journey. Nathan stood with Vivian watching the crowd, Emma beside him, now 12 years old and volunteering at the center on weekends. "We did something good," Vivian said quietly. "We did." "Do you ever think about that night? The alley? The jacket?" Nathan nodded. "All the time. How one random choice led to all of this." "It wasn't random, though." Vivian turned to face him. "You chose kindness when you had nothing. That's not random. That's character. You chose to find me, to give me this chance. That's character, too." They smiled at each other, two people who'd survived different kinds of hell and come out believing in the possibility of good things. Emma tugged on Nathan's sleeve. "Dad, Maria's here. Can I go say hi?" "Of course, baby." They watched Emma run off to greet Maria and her kids, all of them thriving now. Maria had completed her job training and was working as a medical assistant. Her kids were doing well in school. The family had stable housing. One family. One life changed. Multiply that by thousands. Tyler appeared with his son, now 7 years old. "Hayes, there's someone I want you to meet." He gestured to a young woman beside him. "This is Jessica, my girlfriend. She's been helping me with Marcus." Nathan shook her hand, seeing the happiness in Tyler's face. "It's good to meet you." "Tyler talks about you all the time," Jessica said, "about how you saved him." "I didn't save anyone. I just helped connect him to resources." "You gave a damn when nobody else did," Tyler said firmly. "That's the same as saving someone." After they walked away, Vivian bumped Nathan's shoulder. "You're still terrible at accepting credit. Because it's not about credit. It's about helping people." "I know. That's what makes you good at this." As the celebration continued, Nathan found himself thinking about Sarah. How she'd always believed in helping others and making the world better in small ways. How she'd died before seeing any of this but had planted seeds in Nathan that eventually grew into something bigger than either of them could have imagined. He pulled out his phone and looked at the old photo of her holding newborn Emma, the one he'd brought to his first meeting with Vivian. "I think we did okay," he whispered to the picture. "Emma's amazing. We built something that matters. I wish you could see it." But in a way, she was seeing it. Every act of kindness Nathan showed, every family he helped, every decision he made to choose compassion over efficiency, that was Sarah's legacy as much as his own. As the sun set over the center, casting golden light across the crowd of people laughing and eating and celebrating, Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of struggle. There would always be struggles, problems to solve, people who needed help. But peace with who he'd become, with the journey that had brought him here, with the understanding that his worst moments had somehow led to his best work. Emma came back and hugged him. "This is pretty cool, huh, Dad?" "Yeah, baby, it really is. Think we'll build more centers, help more people?" "I think we're going to keep trying, one person at a time. Like you helped me, and Ms. Laurent helped you, and you helped her first even though you didn't know it." Exactly like that. Vivian joined them, and the three of them stood together watching the celebration. A billionaire who'd been a homeless child, a former warehouse worker who'd become a leader, a 12-year-old girl who'd grown up watching her father fight for survival and come out believing in hope. Three people connected by kindness shown across decades, by choices made in moments of desperation that somehow added up to something beautiful. Nathan thought about the scared 32-year-old man who'd opened his door 2.5 years ago to find a stranger on his porch, claiming he owed her a debt. How terrified he'd been. How certain he'd fail. And he thought about where they were now. The thousands of families served, the lives changed, the proof that broken people could build something whole, that poverty didn't define worth, that kindness was never wasted, even when it seemed to disappear into the void. "Thank you," Nathan said to Vivian, "for everything. For seeing something in me I couldn't see in myself." "Thank you for being someone worth seeing," Vivian replied. "For giving a freezing child your jacket when you barely had anything. For building this with me. For proving that good people still exist." Emma looked between them. "Can I say something?" "Of course." "I think this whole story is about how small things matter. Like, Dad gave Ms. Laurent a jacket, and that seemed small. But it was actually huge because it led to all of this. And that means all the small things we do matter too, even when we can't see how." Nathan stared at his daughter, amazed. "When did you get so wise?" "I've been paying attention," Emma grinned. "Also, Mom used to say stuff like that. I remember." They stood together as the party continued around them, and Nathan realized Emma was right. Life wasn't built on grand gestures or perfect moments. It was built on small choices made consistently. Kindness offered when it would be easier to look away. Help given when you barely had anything to spare. Belief in people when the world had written them off. Those small things accumulated, rippled outward, changed lives in ways you couldn't measure or predict. A jacket in the rain. A phone call to a desperate single father. A chance given to someone who'd never had one before. Small things that became everything. As darkness fell and the center's lights glowed warm against the night sky, Nathan felt the weight of the past finally lift. He'd spent so many years just surviving, just holding on, just trying to make it one more day. But somewhere along the way, survival had turned into living. Fear had turned into purpose. Desperation had transformed into hope. He looked at Emma, thriving and confident. At Vivian, who'd found him across 20 years and 2 decades of distance. At the center they'd built together, full of people helping other people. Kindness multiplying outward like light. And Nathan understood something he'd been too tired and scared to see before. The world was full of broken things and broken people, full of systems that failed and safety nets with holes, full of struggle and pain and moments when giving up seemed like the only option. But it was also full of people who chose kindness anyway, who helped when they could, who saw others as worth saving even when they had nothing to gain. And that made all the difference. Not because it fixed everything, not because it erased poverty or solved all problems, but because it proved that people mattered, that small acts counted, that the choice to care, to help, to see someone as human, that choice echoed across time in ways you couldn't predict but could always trust would matter. 20 years ago, a 12-year-old boy gave his jacket to a homeless girl in the rain. Today, That girl stood beside him as a partner, having built something that would help thousands of families find their way out of darkness. Tomorrow, those families would help others, and those others would help more. The ripple never stopped. The kindness never ended. And standing there in the golden light of a community center built on hope and fueled by second chances, Nathan Hayes finally understood what his wife had tried to teach him all those years ago. That the smallest act of love, offered freely in a moment of need, could travel across decades and return as something bigger than you'd ever imagined. That broken people could build beautiful things. That survival was just the beginning of the story, not the end. And that sometimes the jacket you gave away in the rain came back as a chance to change not just your life, but the lives of everyone you'd ever hoped to help. One person at a time, one day at a time. One act of kindness rippling outward forever, touching lives in ways neither Nathan nor Vivian could ever fully count, but both of them would always believe in completely, because that's what kindness did. It remembered, it returned, and it never, ever stopped mattering.